Chapter 181, The frustrated war pope. The terrifying blood magic power raged, and the blood-red lightning directly pierced through the prison. The defensive magic circle inside the prison was destroyed in an instant, and the house collapsed instantly. Li Huan and I, who were still on the second floor of the prison, only felt a violent impact of magical power, and then the ground beneath their feet suddenly shattered, a sharp bloodlight flashed, and the chains that bound the two were all shattered. The two were caught off guard and fell directly to the first floor. Other imprisoned players nearby also fell down, but because the chains were still there, they fell all over the place, and some were even hung up directly. Thick smoke and dust rose from the collapsed prison. Dival and the three war archons were so furious when they saw this scene. This is a provocation to the war church. The demon in front of him did not take the war church seriously at all. You will pay for this. Dival's roar resounded through the night sky, and terrifying magic power burst out. The shadow of the goddess of war appeared behind him, and the three archons on the side also used all their strength. The devil stood quietly there, as if he was oblivious to Duval's anger. The smoke and dust dissipated, revealing the figures of Li Huan and Dahe. The devil stretched out his right hand, and a beam of blood flashed in the ruins like thunder, and the bloody rose returned to Lear's hands. You guys leave here first, and leave the people from the war church to me, the devil said in a calm tone. Lord Blood King, we are also willing to join the blood cult. Can you let us go too? If not, you can just kill us. The players who were still tied up shouted excitedly. Yes, Lord Blood King, please kill me. I am willing to join the blood cult. I will be a dog of the blood cult while I am alive, and a ghost of the blood cult after I die. Various sounds of licking and flattering were heard one after another. Dival and the three archons had already attacked. The terrifying power made everyone terrified, but the demon seemed to be unaware of anything, and the sword directly chopped off the demon's head in front of everyone's gaze. Mr. Munger. Li Huan and Dahe were shocked, and the next second they felt a terrifying impact force coming, forcing the two of them to be blown away. The players who were originally noisy also quieted down, looking at this scene in horror. Looking at the demon that was pierced through, but Dival and the three archons' faces changed. Under the moonlight, the devil's figure disappeared like a shadow. It turned out to be an afterimage. Are you all aliens too? A deep voice suddenly sounded from above. On the roof, the devil stood in the moonlight, his demeanor calm and composed. He looked at the player who had just shouted for death. You and Li Huan are all aliens? Can you come back to life after the dead? The devil spoke again. The players were stunned for a moment, and then someone with a quick mind immediately said excitedly, Yes. Lord Blood King, we are all aliens, we are not afraid of death, as long as we join the blood cult we can do anything for you. The devil let out an ambiguous laugh, and on the ground, the anger in Dival and others' eyes seemed to be about to burst out again and again. This heretical demon didn't take them seriously at all, and didn't even take their attacks seriously. It was complete contempt, as if they could not pose any threat to the demon at all. Dival took a deep breath. Although he was annoyed, he was also a little shocked that the attack just now missed. The demon simply moved a bit and dodged, relying on its absolute speed, and even he only saw a shadow. Is the demon in front of me a professional of the agility department? But even if he is a professional of the agility department, this speed is too incredible. Sharon, who also noticed the abnormality, was even more shocked. She was a spy and also a dexterity-oriented professional, but her speed was far inferior to that of the devil. Master Irwin, please help me control this heretic. I will consult the goddess about cooperation as soon as possible. Dival suddenly said in a deep voice, Now is not the time to save face. With the speed shown by the bloody demon just now, if it wants to leave, they will not be able to stop it. If they let the bloody demon go like this, the war pope will really lose his majesty. Irwin, who was standing by, heard this and took out his staff without hesitation. It is the duty of the three major sects to fight against the heretics who do evil. As he spoke, he flew into the sky. Maya beside him also took out her staff and aimed it at the demon on the roof. The light of arcane shone in the air, and the demon turned his head and looked at Irwin in the air. You are from the Arcane Council. I remember that the Arcane Council is different from the Golden Church and does not reject heretical sects, the devil said lightly. The arcane law will accommodate all powers, but not heretics who do evil. Elvin said in a deep voice. Doing evil? I didn't kill any believers of the Church of War. I just wanted to save the believers who were bleeding. The devil chuckled and looked at Li Huan and Dahe, who were not far away. You seem to know my believers. They didn't cause any trouble. They were arrested because they were affected. Erwin was silent. It was just as the blood demon said, those believers of the war church who fell to the ground were not dead, but just unconscious. However, the blood demon's behavior had seriously offended the war church. There's no point in talking anymore. Erwin shook his head. The demon smiled and didn't argue with Erwin anymore. The light of arcane flickered, and a terrifying chill spread in the night sky. Li Huan and others below could not help but shiver. The freezing cast by an extraordinary wizard can directly affect the target without being able to dodge, and can forcibly freeze the target. The freezing time varies depending on the strength of the target. Erwin estimated that the blood demon in front of him could be frozen for at least 3 seconds, which was enough time for Dival to act. Sure enough, the moment the demon was frozen, Dival and the 3 archons took action, and the 4 of them joined forces to attack the demon again. There is no way to avoid it this time. Li Huan and Dahe are looking at this scene worriedly. Will the thigh they just hugged be broken just like that? Everyone's eyes were on the demon frozen on the roof. A second later, cracks appeared in the ice, and then the bloody heavy sword pierced through the ice, and the demon broke free. In just 1 second, the demon broke free from its restraints. Erwin's expression was a little solemn. The strength of this blood demon was even stronger than he had imagined, but 1 second was enough. Dival and the other 4 had already rushed over, but at this moment a flash of blood appeared in the blood demon's eyes, and a blood moon rose in the sky. With 2 moons in the sky, blood magic gathered, and countless blood swords fell like raindrops. The players in the prison were directly pierced through and died instantly. Lear turned a blind eye to the life and death of the players, holding the bloody rose, and unceremoniously blocked Dival's giant sword. Boom! 2 terrifying forces instantly spread out with the 2 of them as the center, and the blood sword transformed from blood magic in the air also blocked the attacks of the other 3 archons. The blood moon turned into a giant blood-red sword and chopped down the berserker Rugert's axe. The life-binding shackles directly wrapped around Sharon. As for Rafar, he could only passively hold up his shield to defend himself under the attack of the blood-red sword rain. The devil single-handedly blocked the 4 most powerful forces of the Church of War. Dival looked at the still calm demon in front of him in disbelief. He felt that his giant sword was like hitting a mountain. The 2 were actually evenly matched. The speed the demon had just displayed made him think that the demon was an agile professional, but the power it displayed now made him doubt his life. The devil held the bloody rose quietly, and at that moment time seemed to stand still. With the blessing of Aslan's royal swordsmanship, his power limit far exceeded that of Dival, but Dival had the blessing of the wrath of the goddess of war, so the 2 sides were evenly matched. As for the other 3 archons, with the support of the hero temple, the 3 weakened ones are no longer likely to be his opponents. The demon swung the blood-red rapier, and the terrifying power repelled Dival. The other 3 archons were also repelled by the blood magic. The demon was the only one left in the center of the battlefield. Not far away, Erwin and Maya were watching this scene, both of them showing expressions of disbelief that the demon before him could actually confront the Warpope and the 3 war archons head-on. In an instant, the atmosphere became solemn, and Dival, who had never taken the devil seriously, had to admit that the devil in front of him was very powerful. "Who are you?" Dival couldn't help but ask again. "The Blood King, Mung." The devil said his name again. As he spoke, his eyes swept over Dival and the others. The battle had lasted until now, but in fact it was just a test. Dival did not use the skills of other war knights, otherwise the extraordinary level battle would not have resulted in such a small noise. This is the headquarters of the Church of War. In order to avoid any harm, Dival only engaged in the most primitive close combat. Lear only used the little power of the blood moon to block the joint attack of the 3 archons. He did not use the blood source release, and he did not really want to fight to the death with the Church of War. The purpose of coming here today is just to release Li Huan and Dahe, and to show strength among the player community. That is enough. He glanced casually at the other players hiding in the distance and watching the game. These players were recording and broadcasting live. He believed that the name of the Blood King would spread throughout the forum tomorrow. "I have no intention of being an enemy of the Church of War. Today I am only here to take away the blood of the believers." The devil spoke again, his tone still calm. He looked at Li Huan and Dahe and said, "These aliens are not heretics. I think the goddess of war should convey the oracle to you soon. You broke into the Pope's chamber and destroyed the prison. and now you say you don't want to be an enemy of the church? Duval said angrily. Lair shook his head after hearing this. I have said what I can say. If you had not captured the blood believer, I would not have come here. If you still want to fight me, I can accompany you to the end, as long as you don't mind this papal hall becoming a ruin. Are you threatening me? Veins popped out on Duval's forehead. Lair didn't say anything else. He glanced at Li Huanhuan and Dahe, walked over and picked them up. Then, under Duval's extremely angry gaze, he planned to take the two of them away without even looking at Duval again. During the whole process, watching the blood demon leaving, Duval clenched his fists, but finally let them go. But he was not afraid of the blood demon's strength, but this was the Pope's Hall of the Church of War. Once a fight broke out, all the believers and knights' families in the Pope's Hall would suffer. This was something he could not accept. If the blood demon was so cruel as to want to slaughter the believers of the Pope's palace, he would probably be powerless to stop it. This was the first time that Duval felt so aggrieved. Since becoming Pope, when had he ever suffered such a loss? Blood King Meng. Duval gritted his teeth and pronounced the name. Where on earth did such a heretic come from? He had only felt such strength in the Golden Pope and the President of the Arcane Council. Moreover, the Blood King is a hero, which shocked Duval even more. Your Holiness? Erwin at the side broke the silence hesitantly. The Blood King has already left with Dahe and Li Huanhuan. Many players hiding not far away have also left, and seem to be following the direction the Blood King left. Duval looked at the players who were still staying in the Pope's Hall area and suddenly became furious. He had ignored these players before in order to deal with the Blood King, but now it was different. These players are the unlucky ones who got caught in the crossfire. Some players sensed something was wrong and wanted to escape instantly, but the next second, the cold ice layer froze these players. Erwin raised his staff and asked, "What do you plan to do with these alien popes?" "I will pray to the goddess tomorrow," Duval answered with a dull expression. He remembered what the blood heretic had just said. Could it be that aliens were really related to gods? Late at night, the tavern in Soros Royal City was still bustling with activity. A large number of players started a heated discussion in the forum, and live videos from various angles were spread everywhere, especially the scene where the Blood King single-handedly blocked the four extraordinary professionals of the War Church, which made the player group reach a climax. The War Pope is a powerful man standing at the top of the game now, but such a strong man can't do anything to the Blood King and can only watch the Blood King leave. Doesn't this prove something? In the dark alley, Li Huanhuan and Dahe were also watching the discussions in the forum, where their names were mentioned from time to time. The Blood King broke into the War Church in order to rescue the two of them. Players who have watched the internal test live broadcast know how Li Huanhuan and Dahe became believers of the Blood Law. With Li Huanhuan and Dahe's strength, they are actually just cannon fodder. But even so, the Blood King is willing to fight for them. Who doesn't want a boss who protects his own people like this? End of this chapter. Chapter 182. The Blood King's shop and crazy players leading Dahe and Li Huanhuan. Lier came to a dark alley and then let them down. Mr. Munger. As soon as he was put down, Li Huanhuan looked at the tall demon in front of him with admiration. The unique look and temperament really made him unable to stop. It seems that you aliens have begun to descend on a large scale, Lear said in a deep voice in a pretentious manner. Mr. Munger, do you know? Li Huanhuan was a little surprised. Although Munger knew before that they could be resurrected from the dead, he did not know any information about the aliens. The only one who knew about the aliens was Stuart's heir. I received an oracle. Li Heir nodded solemnly. The immortal aliens are about to descend on a large scale, and the blood cult will also return to the world. I need you to help me spread the faith of blood among your group of aliens. You have triggered the mission, the spread of the blood cult. Rank A, the Blood King wants to make the blood cult great again and decides to spread the faith of the blood law. Mission objective, help the Blood King recruit believers who are willing to pledge allegiance to the blood. Task reward, you can get 1,000 experience points and 1 silver coin for each believer you recruit. Li Huanhuan and Dahewan looked at the system prompts that appeared, and after a brief moment of stunned silence, both showed delight on their faces. Spreading faith among players, isn't this planning to establish an organization? They are all old people who followed Munger during the internal test, so they are definitely becoming leaders. Mr. Munger, leave this matter to us. How do you need us to spread the faith? Li Huanhuan suppressed the excitement in her heart and accepted the task directly. Contact your companions, swear allegiance to the blood law, and join the blood cult. Lear said quietly, and then took out a badge from under his robe. The center of the badge was a crystal rose pattern. This is the Blood Rose badge. When you have won over an alien who is willing to swear allegiance to the blood law, you can use it to open a portal, and it will bring you to see me. Lear calmly handed the badge to Li Huanhuan. Li Huanhuan took the medal in a hurry and threw a reconnaissance technique on it. Name, Pure Blood Badge Category, Legal Relics Introduction, a teleportation badge made by the Blood King. Activating the badge will open the door to the old dreamland of the Blood King City. Number of times you can use it. 1. Requirements, Blood Law Professional. The information about the badge appeared in front of Li Huanhuan and Dahe. They stared at the big words, the old dream of Blood King City, in the introduction. Although I don't know what it is, it sounds mysterious and domineering. Blood King Meng has opened the character shop to you. While Li Huanhuan and Dahe were still immersed in the mysterious term old dream of Blood King City, the system panel popped up. Lier looked at the two with his bright red eyes and said, "This is a shop open to sworn believers. As long as your alien companions swear allegiance to the blood law, they can pay a certain price to switch to the blood law profession, or exchange some other items from me." Upon hearing this, Li Huanhuan and the other person couldn't wait to open the store panel that Lier had revealed. Blood Law Occupation, Blood Hunter Occupation Information, Redemption Requirements, 50,000 Experience Points, Blood Law Occupation, Blood Knight Occupation Information, Exchange Requirements, 50,000 Experience Points, Corruption Law Occupation, Royal Corruption Knight Occupation Information, Exchange Requirements, 40,000 Experience Points, Blood Law Occupational Skills, Blood Moon. Arrives, Superb, Redemption Requirements, Blood Essence of Superb and Higher Creatures, 110%, 1%, 1120%, 1%, Law Relic Profane Holy Sword, Exchange Requirements, Any Divine Blood *1. Looking at the character shop of Blood King Meng, Li Huanhuan and Dahe had different expressions. Both of them had been playing the game for some time and had also learned about the conditions for job changes in the three major Orthodox sects on the forum. Usually it is money, and it is very expensive. But what the Blood King Meng requires here is actually experience points. The money players earn from completing quests everywhere is very little, but the experience points are quite a lot, which leads to ridiculously high gold prices on the forums. Many wealthy people collect gold coins at high levels with the intention of changing jobs as soon as possible. Now there is a way to change jobs using experience points. Moreover, the improvement of affinity with the blood law can actually be purchased directly by spending experience points, which is simply unique. You have to know that if you want to improve the affinity of the laws of the three Orthodox sects, you have to complete many difficult tasks. The arcane law is a little different. If the player can create new spells recognized by the arcane goddess, you can also directly improve the affinity of the law, but creating spells, that is more difficult than directly completing the task. The two of them browsed the store page. In addition to the blood law profession they had already switched to, there was also a corruption law profession. Li Huanhuan and Dahe couldn't help but think of the corrupt spirit that was swallowed by the Lord of Bloodsource during the internal test. It seems that the power of the corrupt law has also been incorporated into the Lord of Bloodsource. Finally, the two of them set their sights on the Blood Moon and the Blasphemy Sword, two things that players could never touch. The arrival of the Blood Moon was fine, as it was an extraordinary level skill. After witnessing Aslan's royal swordsmanship, the two had become somewhat immune to it. However, when they saw the effects of the blasphemous sword, their eyes widened at the same time. Name, Blasphemous Sword Category, Legal Relics Attribute, Attack Strength plus 500 Feature 1, Blasphemy of the Law. The Blasphemy Sword can rely on constantly devouring other law relics and equipment items to enhance its capabilities and gain other special effects or feature effects. Feature 2, Magic Stealing. The profaned holy sword can devour the magic of others to replenish its own magic in battle. Special Stunt 1, Flame Burst, raises hot flames to launch a burst attack on the target. Special Stunt 2, Toxic Cloud, releases a large area of intense toxins to cover the battlefield. Special Skill 3, Silver Falling Blade, condense the magic blade to launch a long-range attack on the target. Requirements, Strength 50, Mysticism 50, Description: a mysterious relic from the law of blasphemy. Since the true spirit of blasphemy has died, this relic has lost its former glory, but it still contains the power of the law of blasphemy. It can continuously recover by absorbing the power of other laws, becoming stronger and even comparable to legendary items. However, the holder, blasphemy, has never disappeared. Lear looked at the stunned Li Huanhuan and Dahe with an expressionless face. He had placed the sword of blasphemy there on purpose, just like using Lear's identity to release Aslan's royal swordsmanship. Whether it is the legendary swordsmanship or the profaned holy sword, it is just to give players a thought. When players know that an NPC has a miraculous item, they will not forget him, even if that item cannot be obtained. Moreover, this greatsword is of little use to Lear, and he has set an almost impossible price for the exchange, which is the bait. Dahe and Li Huanhuan felt like they were almost suffocating, their eyes fixed on the pattern of the sword of blasphemy. They all had an impression of this sword. In the promotional video of the game, the Blood King Meng fought against a giant snake holding this sword. Blasphemy, true spirit, the identity of that giant snake. In other words, this is a weapon of a god. In Li Huanhuan's live broadcast room, the comments were also boiling. As early as when Lier took Li Huanhuan and Dahe away, a large number of players flocked into Li Huanhuan's live broadcast room. The tasks that Lier issued to Li Huanhuan and the contents of the story list were displayed to the players. There are already players who are crazy about Giles. Li Huanhuan and Dahe. Valkyrie, my friend, please pass me by. I am willing to swear allegiance to the blood law. Me too. You can change your job by spending experience points? This is much easier than spending money. You can even spend experience points to increase your affinity with the law. It was not until the live broadcast room became noisy that Li Huanhuan took a deep breath and looked at the hideous and terrifying holy sword of blasphemy with some reluctance. Whether it was the curious appearance or the powerful effect, this sword almost grew to Li Huanhuan's aesthetic taste. Redemption requirements, God's blood. Li Huanhuan felt a little helpless. She was just an apprentice of a blood knight now. Where could she get the divine blood? Looking at the big sword in the store, Li Huanhuan was silent for a long time, and her eyes became firm. She is indeed weak now, but one day she will become strong, and this big sword is her ultimate goal. The girl clenched her fists. Dahe beside her was also thinking, and his eyes were on the skill of the blood moon coming. This skill also thoughtfully comes with a skill release effect screen, which is the screen of the blood moon rising when Lear resists the Warpope and the three archons. It is very powerful and handsome. He had no idea about desecrating the holy sword, but he could still consider this skill. The two of them had their own thoughts. At this time, Lier coughed lightly and said, "These are what I can give you temporarily. If you have enough chips, you can exchange them with me. I also asked you to gather people who are willing to join the blood cult. I hope you can carefully select them. The blood cult only wants elites, not just anyone can join. Not only that, character and morality are also important. You can gather 1,000 people first, and when you come to the old dreamland of the Blood King City, I will select again." Lier continued, "I will give you a month. Should it be enough? Are there only 1,000 places?" Li Huanhuan said to herself, "It is better to have nothing than to have something of poor quality. The blood cult will return to the world, and every believer must be an elite." Lear pretended to show a serious look. "We understand, Mr. Munger." Li Huanhuan and Dahe looked at each other and then nodded. Lier also nodded, then turned around and disappeared in front of the two people without any delay. Li Huanhuan and Dahe breathed a sigh of relief only after Lier left. When they came to their senses, their backs were already soaked with cold sweat. Although the Bloody King did not do anything to them, the power he naturally exuded still made them sweat profusely. "It seems that we won't have any leisure time from now on." Li Huanhuan glanced at the crazy live broadcast room. After the Blood King announced that there were only 1,000 spots available, all the players watching the live broadcast went crazy. Dahe nodded helplessly after hearing this. "There is no other way. Since I have accepted the mission, I can only do it well. I still want to cling to the Blood King's thigh." Tonight is destined to be a crazy night for players, and the charm of law will be displayed in front of all players. The first game that feels so real, with such smart NPCs and cool skills, but Lear didn't care about these. He returned to his and Milia's room without anyone knowing. As soon as he entered the direction, Lear saw Milia running up to him and looking at his body carefully. She looked like a little wife waiting for her husband to come home. "I'm fine." Lier smiled and took Milia into his arms. Milia stared at Lier angrily. "You said you were going to rescue those two aliens, but you didn't say you would provoke the Church of War." "I was just sparring with Duval." Lier shrugged. "Is that a sparring match? You almost trampled on the face of the Pope of War." Milia glared at Lear unhappily. She could see everything through the star mirror of the Morning Star Scepter. Facing Milia's anger, Lear felt helpless. He knew that Milia was worried about him. Provoking the War Church was indeed a bold act, but Lear also got a rough understanding of his own strength from it. If he were to perform blood liberation and combine it with Aslan's royal swordsmanship, he might be able to fight against the Pope and the 3 war archons alone. I promise there won't be a next time. Lear smiled and hugged Milia and fell on the bed. You want to have another? Milia wanted to say something, but was completely interrupted by Lear's passionate kiss. Silent all night, the next day, Lear and Milia left the guest room. The weather was just right, and Lear was planning to take Milia to visit the royal city of Soros. As soon as they went out, they saw Princess Maya and Divine with long purple hair. Good morning. Lear nodded to the 2 women. Maya also nodded politely, while Tivani looked at Lear and Miria holding hands with an uncomfortable expression. Are you 2 going out? Lear asked. We plan to meet those aliens. Yesterday, the heretics broke into the Pope's hall and rescued many aliens, but some aliens were still captured. Maya replied quietly, you should have felt the situation in the prison yesterday, right? Maya continued, looking at Lear with a hint of doubt in her eyes. She already knew Lear's identity from Duval, the special executive appointed by the goddess of war herself. But such a big thing happened in the Church of War yesterday, and Lear did not show up. In response to Maya's scrutiny, Lear still had a gentle smile on his face. He himself was the Blood King, so it was naturally impossible for him to appear again as Lear. I think that no matter what happens, His Holiness the Pope and the 3 consuls should be able to solve it. Compared to those unimportant things, I would rather be with my wife. Lear said, stretching out his hand to hug Milia in his arms, which made Maya, the princess who had no experience with men and women, stunned. End of this chapter. Chapter 183, The Defected Princess Hiding in Soros, continued. You're talking about something unimportant? Maya showed a surprised expression when she heard Lear's words. Lear smiled, glanced at Miria, whose cheeks were slightly red in his arms, and said casually, the position of Special Executive Officer was given by the Goddess of War, but I have no interest in this position, and I don't want to manage the affairs of the War Church. His tone was very calm, but Maya opened her mouth with an incredible expression on her face. A war believer who was blessed by the Goddess of War would actually say such outrageous words. Maya even began to doubt Lear's faith. Lear didn't say anything about Maya's shock. He just nodded and took Miria's hand and left. It was not until they were far away from Maya and Divine that Milia said strangely, is that okay with you? Any questions? Lear turned his head. Aren't you a believer in the laws of war? Then why are you still? Milia seemed to be hesitant to speak. I am not a believer in the laws of war. Lear interrupted Milia. As he spoke, his eyes became deep. The NPCs in the game rely on faith to gain strength, but he doesn't need it. He neither believes in war nor blood and the Morning Star. He does not believe in any gods. Lear didn't say much to Milia about faith, and took her away from the Pope's hall. Before going out, he also prepared masks for himself and Milia to prevent being discovered by players. After a night, the number of players on the road increased a lot. Looking at the players with IDs, Lear pretended to pass by as if nothing had happened. Some players were curious when they saw Lear and Milia wearing masks, but they did not rashly use reconnaissance skills. Are these people all aliens? Milia, who was following Lear, suddenly asked, can you feel it? Lear looked at Milia with some surprise. These people's souls are so strange. Milia nodded. As the goddess of Morningstar, Milia's perception was very sharp. Where are you taking me? She asked again. I took you out for a walk. You can't stay in the church all the time. Lear smiled. Is that so? Milia looked at Lear suspiciously. In the next few hours, Lear proved that he was not lying. He took Milia to tour the Soros royal city until the afternoon. Milia held an ice cream cone in her hand and licked the creamy ice cream with her tongue. She looked a little strange. You seem to be very familiar with the Soros royal city? I've been here before. Lear nodded without elaborating. He took Milia to a remote alley. There was a shop open in the alley, and the sign in front of the door read Mina's Bookhouse. This is a bookstore. From the door, you can only see piles of books. Inside the bookstore, a woman with glasses is reading a book seriously. What is this place? Milia asked puzzledly. A bookstore. Lear answered with a chuckle. Hearing Lear's answer, Milia pouted. Of course she knew that this was a bookstore. After all, it was written on the sign, but this was not what she wanted to ask. Lear didn't explain much and walked into the bookstore with a smile on his face. As a player who was born in the Soros royal city in his previous life, he knew everything about Soros, including some hidden tasks. The bookstore in front of you is one of them. Sensing someone walking into the bookstore, the woman who was reading looked up, and when she saw Lear and Milia wearing masks, she frowned. The woman put down the book in her hand and asked, "What's the matter?" Lear ignored the woman's question and walked to the bookcase and started reading the books on it. Seeing that the masked weirdo didn't speak, the woman frowned even deeper, and she said in a deep voice, "If you have nothing to do, please leave. Isn't this a bookstore? It should be okay for me to come in and read some books, right?" Lear finally spoke. He turned his head and looked at the woman beside him. At this time, Milia also walked in, and was stunned when she saw the woman's appearance. The woman with glasses in front of her gave her a very familiar feeling, as if she had seen her somewhere before. "You can read, but my library doesn't welcome people who hide their true colors." After hearing what Lear said, the woman's expression turned cold, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop a lot. The atmosphere became a little subtle, but Lear did not take any action because of the woman's words. He just continued to look at the books on the bookshelf, and then said calmly, "Why is Princess Mina angry?" As Lear spoke, when she heard the words Princess Mina, the glasses-wearing woman's pupils shrank suddenly, and then she revealed a dangerous expression. "Who are you?" the woman said coldly. Lear took off the mask on his face, revealing his true appearance. "Lear Stewart, Special Executive of the Church of War," he introduced himself. Looking at Lear's face, Mina tried to recall carefully, but she had no impression of either the name or the face in front of her. "There is also a Special Executive of the War Church." She had only heard of the War Archon, but had never heard of what a special executive was. "How do you know my identity? What do you know?" Mina took a deep breath and asked in a deep voice, "You are Mina Kalia, the eldest princess of the Kalia royal family. Your sister is Maya Kalia." Facing Mina's question, Lear did not answer, but instead spoke to himself. 5 years ago, you stole the forbidden arcane book from the royal family of Kalia, then fled the kingdom of Kalia and came to the royal city of Soros, where you hid. Mina Kalia is Maya Kalia's sister. She was also a very famous wizard in Lear's previous life, a wizard of extraordinary level. Before that, he was a member of the Arcane Council and a talented wizard. It sounds unbelievable that an extraordinary wizard is hiding in the headquarters of the Church of War, but Mina Kalia used this to avoid being captured by the Arcane Council. In the previous life, a wizard player accidentally discovered the bookstore and triggered the quest. Lear didn't know how the wizard player triggered the quest, but he still knew the content of the quest. Princess Mina wanted to unlock the secret of the forbidden arcane book after getting it, but this arcane book was not simple. This is an arcane book that records forbidden spells, and is also a powerful relic of law. Princess Mina's expression became uglier as Lear spoke. She was shocked and a little bit unbelievable. During the 5 years she had been hiding in the Soros royal city, she had never told anyone about her affairs, but the young man in front of her knew everything about her. How did the other party know? Mina's eyes flickered as she pondered a strategy: kill the young man in front of her and then escape from Soros. A dangerous thought came to Mina's mind. She has reached the final stage of analyzing the forbidden arcane book. For the sake of that book, she gave up her identity and status in the royal family of Kalia and hid for 5 years. She must not fail. Mina's eyes became sharp, and at this moment, Lear's voice sounded again. "I advise you not to do anything too dangerous. We are both extraordinary professionals. You can't do anything to me. Besides, your sister, Maya Kalia, is in Soros now. You don't want your sister in the Arcane Council to know your whereabouts, do you?" Lear spoke slowly and calmly. The player in the previous life took great pains to complete the task, and finally obtained some powerful spell rewards from Mina. But these were not what Lear wanted. What he wanted was the spells in the forbidden arcane book, the immortal, which this was the title of Mina Kalia in her previous life. It was only after she analyzed the arcane book that Mina revealed her amazing power. No matter how many times she is killed, she always rises from the dead. With Lear's current strength, there is almost nothing in the royal city of Soros that can attract his attention, and Mina's arcane book is one of the few things that can arouse Lear's interest. Coming back from the dead is an ability only players have. How did Maya appear in Soros? Mina questioned with disbelief. "How long have you not left this house?" Lear asked instead of answering Mina, and Mina was stunned for a moment, thinking that she had not been out for half a month, and indeed she did not know much about what happened in Soros Royal City. Yet if Maya is really in Soros now, she must be protected by members of the Arcane Council. If she fights with the man in front of her, there will definitely be a lot of noise. The other party might be some special executive of the War Church. If she attracts the attention of the War Church and Maya, she will lose more than she gains. After weighing the pros and cons, Mina's face turned extremely ugly. She took a deep breath and said to Lear, "What do you want?" "I want your book of arcane arts," Lear replied. "Impossible." Mina refused without hesitation, and her eyes turned fierce when she looked at Lear. "Do you want the Arcane Council to discover your whereabouts?" Lear threatened, even if I'm discovered and captured by the Parliament, I will never give the arcane book to you. Mina's attitude remained tough. She almost gave up everything for the arcane book. Lear narrowed his eyes, and the two looked at each other. The atmosphere in the room became a little solemn. Milia watched the scene from the side, and the expression on her face became a little strange. She knew Lear, and now Lear's attitude always felt like he was trying to trick people. After a brief silence, Lear spoke again. Then I will change the condition. When you finish analyzing the arcane book, you must share the spells in it with me. Why? Mina was a little annoyed, and even her plump chest was heaving up and down. She had worked hard to hide for 5 years and finally analyzed the spell, and she was going to share it with a stranger? She couldn't accept it at all. I have already made concessions, Princess Mina, and I am not negotiating with you. Lear chuckled. Now he has the princess in his hands and the initiative is in his hands. Hearing this, Mina gritted her teeth and wanted to fight with Lear on the spot, but when she thought of the consequences, she reluctantly suppressed the impulse in her heart. You are from the Church of War, what do you need spells for? Mina asked, gritting her teeth. Then there's no need to trouble your highness. Lear smiled slightly. In that case, I will take it as your agreement, your highness. I will wait for your good news. But don't even think about escaping, your highness. I will send someone to keep an eye on you. Lear said again, and patted Mina's shoulder. A barely detectable red light flowed along Lear's arm and into Mina's body. After doing all this, Lear waved his hand, took Milia and turned away, leaving only the angry Mina standing there. After leading Milia out of the alley, Milia asked, Is this the reason you came out today? I guess so, but the main purpose is to take you out for a walk. Lear nodded and smiled at Milia. Milia pouted when she heard that, but didn't say anything else. The two continued to wander around the royal city until the evening and finally returned to the Pope's Hall. Back at the Pope's Hall, Duval was standing with Erwin, Maya, and 3 war archons, seemingly discussing something. Seeing Lear walking into the church, Duval waved to Lear and said, Special Executive Officer Lear, you are finally back. Are you waiting for me? What's the matter? Lear asked. It's about aliens and cooperation. We have received the oracle. Duval explained. Oh, what did the goddess say? Lear asked with pretended curiosity. It is indeed as those aliens said. Aliens are summoned by the gods. The goddess hopes that we will accept those aliens and let them join the church. Duval said, Well, the 3 major churches have reached an agreement. Not only the Arcane Council, but also the Golden Church. We will set up branches in various countries. Since it is the oracle of the goddess, then there is no problem. Lear nodded. Matters concerning the cooperation can only be announced after the arrival of the people from the Golden Church. Now the church has relaxed its control over aliens. Duval added, People from the Golden Church are coming too? Lear raised his eyebrows. Yes, about half a month later, when the people from the Golden Church arrive, I will hold a banquet in the Pope's Hall to notify them of the cooperation matters and announce your identity as Special Executive Lear. Duval continued. Lear nodded. He had no opinion on the announcement of his Special Executive Officer. Instead, he was somewhat interested in the arrival of the Golden Church. He used the identity of the Blood King to make some trouble in the War Church. He wondered if Ophelia's mother would rush to Soros Royal City after knowing the appearance of the Blood King. I heard that a heretic broke into the Pope's Hall yesterday? Lear suddenly asked. Hearing this, Duval's expression was a little dull, but he still nodded. Yes, I asked the goddess, but the goddess did not respond to the matter about the heretic. Duval couldn't understand why someone was bullying the Church of War, but the goddess of war remained indifferent. He sighed, and could only think that the goddess did not take the heretics seriously. End of this chapter. Chapter 184, Construction of Blood King City and preparations before players arrive. After exchanging a few words with Duval and others, Lear took Milia back to the guest room. Milia was not interested in the affairs of the 3 major sections. She walked beside Lear, and when she saw Maya, she remembered Mina whom she had just met outside. Are they sisters? But the feeling she had was very different. She inexplicably thought of Millis, who was still trapped in the Morning Star Scepter. Sighing helplessly, she asked Lear, Is the person you just saw outside Maya's sister? Yes. Lear nodded. You just threatened the other party verbally. Do you think Maya's sister will really listen to you? Milia asked again. When Lear threatened Mina, she felt that it was a bit of a joke. The other party was a great wizard of extraordinary level. Lear said that he would arrange people to keep an eye on him, but if the other party escaped now, who could stop him? It doesn't matter whether she listens or not. A smile appeared on Lear's face. He didn't expect to get what he wanted by threatening. In his previous life, he had helped another wizard to complete Mina's mission. He knew Nina's character very well. She was probably thinking about how to escape now, but she would not leave immediately. Mina will definitely investigate all the information about him and will come back to get revenge before leaving. The princess who was willing to betray the royal family of Kalia in order to learn forbidden magic is not so easy to bully. Emilia looked at the smiling Lier, frowned, and said in a somewhat dangerous tone, "Why do you seem to know a lot about the princess?" "Of course Lier was about to answer subconsciously when he heard this. He turned his head and stopped talking when he saw Milia's narrowed eyes. "Of course I don't understand." "Really?" Milia walked to Lear and looked into his eyes with scrutiny. She was very curious in the bookstore just now. How did Lear know Mina Kalia was there? Judging from Mina's reaction, she obviously didn't know Lear, but Lear knew Mina, which was very abnormal, and Lear didn't have the astrology of the law of the morning star. Seeing Lear staring at her for a long time, Milia snorted, "Forget it, I'll trust you. Don't ask me to go out these few days. I will design the skills of Chinching Law as soon as possible." The girl raised her head and said angrily, "I promise that the skills I design will definitely be stronger than the skills in that arcane book you asked for." After saying that, Milia turned around and went straight back to the room. Looking at Milia's leaving back, Lier smiled and whispered, "Then I'll look forward to it." Having said that, he also returned to the room. Milia had gone back to the bedroom and closed the door, and the living room was empty. Lier sat on the sofa and took out the dream core of the old dream of Blood King City from the storage ring. There was a flash of bright red light, and Lear's figure disappeared in the room. The old dream of Blood King City. Ophanina stood in the field with a hoe in her hand, surrounded by working blood elves. She was the saint of the Golden Church, but now she was farming. Ophanina couldn't accept it, but she couldn't resist. The old dreamland is a realm that only gods possess. In the Golden Church, there is also the old dreamland belonging to the goddess of golden law. Only the most devout golden believers are qualified to enter. She has now entered the old dream of blood law, and it is impossible for her to escape. Moreover, the followers of blood law, the blood elves, are also in the old dream. "Ophanina, what's wrong?" Irina on the other side looked at the dazed Ophanina and asked. "No. It's okay." Ophelia forced an expression. "Lord Lear is here." There was a sudden commotion among the blood elves working not far away. Hearing the sound, Ophelia and Irina both looked over. Irina showed a happy expression on her face, then she put down her hoe and ran over. Lear stood in front of the ruins of the royal city, looking at the scene in front of him, a little surprised that he hadn't been here for some time, nor had he come to suck Ophanina's blood. He was very relieved that Ophanina was in the old dream. Without his permission, Ophanina would never be able to leave the old dream, and Amber was watching her. The ruins of the royal city before him looked more orderly than the last time he came here. Many collapsed buildings had been rebuilt, like a small town. However, most other parts of the royal city were still in ruins. "Young master!" Eno and Adele ran out from the crowd. The two girls came to Lear with some excitement. Lier smiled. He had placed Eno and Adele in the old dream to upgrade their levels for half a month. He used his mental power to sense the past and had a clear view of the two women's situations. Eno has already reached the level of a beginner blood hunter, and Adele is even stronger. It looks like it won't be long before she can break through to a mid-level blood hunter. With the added experience from the dream trial, both women are improving very quickly. It seems that you have not slacked off in the trials during this period. Lier nodded with satisfaction. The gentle temperament of Eno and Adele has disappeared. After experiencing the baptism of the dream trial, they have become more aggressive. This is what we should do. We also want to help the young master as soon as possible. Eno replied quickly. Well, let's go first. It's a good opportunity for us to come here today because we have a task for you. Lier took Eno and Adele's hands and walked towards the interior of the royal city. Coming inside, Lillian's statue stood there, and the blood temple had been moved to where it should have been. The red wolf Amber also came out of the temple, along with Ophelia and others. After taking a look at Ophanina, Lear smiled and waved, signaling everyone to follow. When we arrived at the temple hall, It had been completely renovated. At the end of the temple is a statue of Lillian, and below the statue is a high throne, as if prepared for a king. Lear raised his eyebrows and walked up to the throne. Everyone stood below like subjects loyal to the king. Amber, did you arrange all this? Lear asked with some surprise, overlooking the people in the hall. Humph. Lady Lillian ordered that. Amber snorted. Lillian? Lear whispered to himself. He smiled and stopped asking questions. Then he said, "Thank you everyone. I like it here very much. Today I have returned to the old dream and I have a new task to assign to you." What are you going to do? Amber asked. A group of aliens from another world have descended into the outside world. They are the chosen ones summoned by the gods and have the ability to resurrect from the dead. Lier said slowly, "Our blood cult will no longer remain dormant. I have gathered thousands of aliens and will have them join the blood cult. The blood cult will officially be born." Inhumans? Are they the immortal Inhumans that Lady Lillian mentioned? Amber seemed to have thought of something. It seems that Lillian has already told you. Lier nodded. In another month, those aliens will come to the old dream. I hope that in this month, you can rebuild some Blood King cities so that this place can accommodate those 1,000 aliens. Are you planning to let those aliens live here? Amber frowned. The Blood King city has always been the base of the Blood Elves. She was a little worried about suddenly allowing strangers to live there. Of course not. Lier shook his head. What I need is a mysterious and powerful royal city. Only powerful aliens who are truly loyal to the blood law are qualified to stay in the royal city for a long time. This will become a holy place of blood in the hearts of the alien believers. In this month, I hope you can show a holy city full of majesty. I roughly understand what you mean. You recruited those aliens and wanted to show them the power of the blood law. But how can we repair the entire royal city in 1 month? Amber shook her head. There is no need to repair the entire royal city. Lier corrected. We only need to show some areas, like those outside in the blood temple. The other areas can be put on hold for now. I will limit the areas where the aliens can move. Just a part of the area will do? Yes, the area does not have to be too large, but the majesty of the blood law must be reflected. Lear nodded. That's fine. Amber nodded. Well, I will awaken the affinity of the blood law for those aliens at that time, and the subsequent job transfer will be left to Irina and you. Lier looked at Irina, Eno, and others again. We? Is it okay? Irina pinched the corner of her clothes nervously. Of course there is no problem. Although those aliens are immortal, they are just ordinary people. You are a high-level blood knight, which is more than enough for you to change their jobs. And Eno and Adele, I hope you can reach the intermediate level before those aliens arrive. Lier said lightly. Of course, he couldn't change the jobs of the players one by one, which was too low class. Before returning to the old dream, Lier discovered that the system panel had a new function. By delegating some of the panel's capabilities to the core of the old dream, and then parasitizing part of the power of the dream core on the magic gem, players can directly perform tasks on the gem. Not it's just like the NPC stores and tasks in online games, but all these abilities can only be performed in the old dream, which is a limitation. Lear was thinking, and suddenly stood up. A strange red light emanated from his body. The blood bar above his head dropped rapidly until it stopped halfway. In the bloodlight, a figure exactly like Lear slowly emerged, the embodiment of blood. Lier summoned the blood incarnation again. After his previous death, the blood incarnation fell into a cooling and ban state, but now it can be used again. I will leave the blood incarnation in the old dream. If there is anything you don't understand, you can contact me through the blood incarnation. My blood incarnation will also help you rebuild the royal city. By the way, I remember that the blood elves should have craftsmen, right? Let the craftsmen make some apprentice-level equipment, and by the way, make some high-level equipment as a selling point. Also let Sheila refine some low-level potions, which can be sold to those aliens later. If you have any material needs, you can contact me and I will help you solve them. Lier added. He asked players to come to the old dreamland not just to change their jobs, he wanted to create a hidden special map in the game. The Holy Land was full of treasures, and players had to pay a price if they wanted to enter, and constantly improve the reputation of the Blood Sect. These are the basic operations of online games. That's all. If there is anything else, I will inform you again. If there is nothing else, you can go first. Lier waved his hand. Upon hearing this, Amber and others below left the hall one after another. Amber was the last to leave. She glanced at Lier sitting on the throne with a dazed look, and now Lier's posture reminded her of the former Blood Queen, but unfortunately the Queen had died in the destruction, and now there was only the Blood King. Amber lowered her head somewhat dejectedly and left the hall. Afanina followed Irina listlessly and went straight back to her room. Just now, Lier didn't say anything to her from beginning to end. She felt forgotten, even though he had humiliated her so much before. Lying on the bed, Lier's face kept appearing in Afanina's mind. The room fell into silence. After a long while, Afanina suddenly jumped up from the bed, picked up the pillow on the bed and threw it hard against the wall. Damn heretic, she said angrily. Has anyone made Her Majesty the Saint angry? A teasing voice sounded in the room. It's still that bastard. He locked me up here and didn't care about anything. Ophelia answered subconsciously. As she was talking, she suddenly reacted and turned her head sharply. Who? Lier stood in front of Ophelia's door, looking at the saint in front of him with a smile. Which bastard are you talking about? Why are you here? Afanina's cheeks suddenly turned red. You are my prisoner, and I am justified wherever I am. Lier walked towards Afanina step by step, grabbed Afanina's arm, and pressed her down on the bed. Lier lowered his head to feel the pure taste of the girl's neck. He had not tasted Afanina's blood for a long time and showed a longing expression. Without giving Ufankina a chance to speak, he bit Ufankina's neck. The moment Lier bit her, Afanina felt her body lose strength, but she did not reject it in her heart. The atmosphere in the room was somewhat charming. After a while, Lier finally let go of his words. He looked down at the girl in his arms and said with a smile, It seems that you no longer reject me. Hearing this, Afanina's face became even redder and she bit her lip, but she did not refute. Lier released Ophelia's hand and let her go. You know I'm in Soros now, right? Sometime later, people from the Golden Church will come to Soros to discuss cooperation with the War Church. Not long ago, I caused a big disturbance in the War Church as the Blood King. My story should have spread. Listening to Lier's words quietly, Ophelia was a little confused, wondering why Lier would say these to her. Do you think your mother, Sylvia, will come? Lier turned his head and suddenly said meaningfully, End of this chapter, chapter 185, the Saint of Gold or Blood. Looking at Afanina, who had fallen into silence, Lier's eyes were deep. He had imprisoned Afanina for some time, and now what he wanted was a saint who belonged to him, not a saint of the Golden Rule. How do you think I should treat Sylvia if she really comes? Lier said in a deep voice, but his tone was not friendly. Hearing Lier's words, Ophelia was obviously panicked. What do you want to do to your mother? What do you think I should do when facing a golden high priest who is hostile to me? Lier asked back. Afanina bit her lip. The Golden Church and heresy were irreconcilable. Now she was still in Lier's hands, and the two sides would definitely fight to the death. She already knew about Lier's strength, and her mother was definitely no match for him. What do you want? Afanina asked Lier nervously. I want you, Lier said lightly. Hearing this, Ufankina was stunned for a moment and her cheeks suddenly turned red. How could this bastard say such shameless words? Ophelia was ashamed and angry, but Lier's next words made her completely stunned. I want you to rebel against the Golden Church and become the saint of the Blood Sect. Lier stated his purpose. The room fell into silence, and it took a while for Ophelia to react. What are you talking about? I believe in the Golden Law, and my power is given by the goddess. How could I become the saint of the blood cult? Afanina retorted quickly. A faith? Can't gods erase that kind of thing at will? Lier shook his head nonchalantly. The blasphemous spirit can transform blood elves into snakemen, and Lillian can also rescue Shira from the control of the blasphemous spirit, which naturally allows Ophelia, the Golden Saint, to become the Blood Saint. The only thing to worry about is how the Golden Law Goddess will react. When Ophelia was imprisoned before, the goddess of the Golden Law did not say anything. When she used the power of the Golden Law to promote the Blood Law, she was only punished by a decrease in the affinity of the Golden Law. These are but drizzle to Lier. Even if Ophelia is really turned into a saint of blood, there will probably be no punishment. Lier had a guess in his heart that the goddess of Golden Law, and even the goddess of war and the goddess of arcane could not easily come to the human world otherwise. When the corrupt spirit was wreaking havoc in the royal city, the Golden Law goddess would not have just lent her power to Sylvia, but also let Lear pick the peaches and sacrifice the corrupt spirit to Lillian. Moreover, in his previous life, Lear had never seen a real god descend to the earth. He still remembered that in his previous life, when a country was on the verge of destruction due to a rising heretical sect, the gods they believed in did not come to the world, but continued to only issue tasks to players. Lillian originally intended to devour the Golden Law in you, so it was easy for her to turn you into a follower of blood. Lear said calmly. This was a decision he made after considering for a long time. Turning Ophinia into the Saint of Blood would undoubtedly be a huge blow to the Golden Church. Not only was his own saint kidnapped, but she was also betrayed. The prestige of the Golden Church will certainly decline, which will also affect players' decisions when choosing a legal profession. The main theme of the game Law in the early days of its launch was the emergence of various heretical sects, which were then besieged by the three major Orthodox sects headed by the Golden Church. In the previous life, because of convenience, at least 70% of the players joined the three major sects, which put the newly born heretical sects in a difficult situation. The only good thing is Milia's Morningstar Law, and that's because the Morningstar Law doesn't spread the faith much and has the support of the Arcane Council in the rear, but now it's different. The Blood Cult is different from Morningstar and needs to gain power from believers, so the power of the player is crucial. The Church had already demonstrated some of the power of the Blood Cult during the previous war. If the Golden Saint rebelled against the Golden Church and became the Blood Saint, the prestige of the Blood Cult could be taken to a higher level. What do you think? As long as you join the Blood Cult, I can promise not to attack Sylvia. Lear said lightly. Ophinia lay on the bed at a loss. On one side was the golden rule she believed in, and on the other side was her mother. She didn't want to lose either one. Seeing Ophelia's entangled look, Lear chuckled and said, I can give you time to think about it, but I won't wait for you too long. As long as you take the initiative to stand up and tell Sylvia that you are already mine, I promise that neither you nor Sylvia will be in danger. After saying the last sentence, Lear stood up and left the room. As they walked out of the room and closed the door, Lillian floated off of Lear. You want me to devour the essence of law in her body? Lillian asked impatiently. Don't you want it? Lear smiled. Of course I want to. Lillian replied eagerly. Aren't you afraid that the goddess of the Golden Law will cause trouble for us? Lear asked. Oomph. She can't interfere with us. Lillian snorted fearlessly. Lear raised his eyebrows in surprise. Although he also speculated that the goddess of Golden Law probably could not interfere too much in the affairs of the mortal world, he was not as sure as Lillian. It seems that there is indeed a connection between the gods. Lear shook his head and didn't ask any more questions. He returned to the Blood Temple, said hello to everyone, and left the old dream. The Golden Cathedral in the royal city of Brayful. Sylvia stood in front of the statue of the goddess of Golden Law. She had been searching for the whereabouts of the Blood Apostle here for several months, but had not found any clues, nor had she received any news from Ophinia. She looked at the goddess she believed in. This was her lifelong belief, but the goddess of the Golden Law did not respond to Ophinia's affairs. Sylvia clenched her fists subconsciously, and at this moment a solemn voice appeared in her mind. Go to Soros Royal City and cooperate with the Church of War and the Arcane Council? Release the aliens, who are summoned by the gods, and recruit them to join the Golden Church? Sylvia raised his head suddenly. This was the first time she received an oracle from the goddess of the Golden Law after several months, but as the Golden High Priestess, she felt that the content of this oracle was a bit absurd. Just as Sylvia was stunned, the Golden Bishop hurried to the cathedral. Seeing Sylvia, he immediately showed a respectful expression. Your Excellency the High Priest, I have heard the news about the Blood Apostle. What did you say? After hearing the words Blood Apostle, Sylvia immediately threw the oracle out of his mind. This is news from the Soros Royal City in Nox. It is related to the aliens who recently appeared in Breefield. The Blood Apostles broke into the Church of War and forcibly rescued the Blood Cult believers among the aliens. The Golden Bishop dared not neglect to tell all the information. Is the news accurate? Are you sure it's the heretic Blood Apostle? Sylvia became a little excited. It's true. It's the insider of Soros Royal City. The news was sent back by the Hummingbird Messenger. It just arrived. The Golden Bishop replied. Blood Apostle. After getting a definite response, Sylvia took a deep breath. She muttered the 4 words Blood Apostle and her eyes became fierce. Get ready and set off to Soros Royal City immediately, as fast as possible. At the same time, members of the three major Orthodox sects in major cities received oracles, which contained information about the cooperation among the three major sects and how to deal with aliens. All of a sudden, the army of players imprisoned in the prison were finally released. Lier returned to the Pope's Hall, which was already crowded with players, many of whom were looking forward to switching to the war law profession. Isn't it too expensive? It takes 10 silver coins to switch to the war law profession? How long do I have to work for this? A player complained. I calculated that working 3 jobs a day would only take a week. Some players also rationally calculated the time required to change jobs. I've never worked in real life, and now I have to work in the game? You've never worked in real life? Are you a rich second generation? No, I'm staying at home. Various discussions were heard one after another, and Lier almost couldn't help laughing. According to his experience in his previous life, after the three major sects lifted the ban on players, except for the rich who spent a lot of money to collect gold, it would take about 10 days for normal players to change jobs. Looking at the crowded scene in front of him, Lier was not surprised. Although he showed the power of the blood law to the players, he only mentioned 1,000 places. Soros now has at least tens of thousands of players, and it is naturally impossible for more people to wait for him without changing their jobs. However, even if the player changes his job to another profession, Lier is not worried about not being able to recruit followers of the blood cult in the future. In the game, players need very precious items to change their professions, but this restriction does not include heretical sections. If players want to change the beliefs of a heretical sect, they can change it directly, but there is only one free opportunity. After taking a quick look at the group of players, Lier did not see those famous players from his previous life. He was about to leave, but at this moment, a sharp-eyed player saw Lier. Oh shit, it's the NPC in the promotional video. A cry of surprise rang out among the crowd. The crowd was quiet for a moment, then became noisy. Where is where? Lier was standing not far away. Among the ordinary dressed players, he stood out from the crowd, especially his handsome appearance, which instantly attracted the interest of many female players. At the same time, many reconnaissance skills were also cast on him. Name: Lil Stewart, War Church Special Executive Hero, Level 80, Extraordinary, Occupation, War Knight / Mage Favorability, Normal Danger Level, Extremely Deadly F******, another hero level NPC? I'm reporting an NPC cheating. Why does he have 2 professions? What a handsome NPC! Does anyone know the information about this NPC? The crowd became agitated, and at this moment a terrifying pressure enveloped all the players. You are suppressed by the extraordinary class, all damage and skill effects are reduced by 50%, you are under the pressure of the hero status, all damage and skill effects are reduced by 30%. 2 system prompts appeared in front of all the players. Looking at the information in front of them, the players' eyes almost popped out. One drops by 50%, the other drops by 30%, which directly reduces the output and skill effect by 80%. If you want to attack the boss, you will lose your life. Although the goddess oracle is for the church to accept you, it is not polite to use detection spells on others at will. Lier's voice rang in the ears of all the players. The players looked at each other in bewilderment. Some of the players who had watched Li Huanhuan's internal test live broadcast looked at Lier as if he were looking at some rare treasure. They knew that Lier's shop had all kinds of spells and swordsmanship, even legendary swordsmanship, but these players did not make it public. This is important information and no one is willing to share it with others for free. This included Wudi Zwijianlang. During the time he was in Soros Royal City, he made up for the internal testing content of law, especially the live broadcast recording of Li Huanhuan. I have some understanding of the 2 NPCs, Blood King and Lil Stewart. The Blood King was a hero, but he never expected that Lil Stewart was also a hero. Currently, many high-level players in Soros player group are waiting for the blood cult selection in more than 20 days. Li Huanhuan and Dahe are already very busy. Wudi Zwijianlang also signed up, but he did not put all his hopes on the Blood King, so he came to the War Church to see the situation. Lier's appearance can be said to be a pleasant surprise. This NPC must be at the same level as the Blood King. Holding on to this thigh will definitely not be worse than the Blood King. It can even be said to be better. After all, the War Church is an Orthodox religion, different from the Blood Sect. Just when Wudi Zwijianlang was still thinking about how to get close to Lier had already turned and left, leaving the players in chaos and talking about the matter. When Lier showed up, Li Huanhuan and Dahe were tortured and mentally depressed. Their private messages have exploded. with all kinds of messages wanting to join the blood cult emerging one after another, including famous players in the previous game, major well-known anchors, professional players, and even some players who are not in Soros Royal City have sent private messages. Li Huan looked at the list she had written down. The Blood King wanted elites, so she selected those who were powerful anchors and professional players in the gaming industry, as well as some players who claim to be elites in reality, such as boxers, athletes, and so on. But even so, the number of people is still a bit too many. Li Huan knew that there must be fakes among them, so she had to screen them again. We have initially selected 3,000 people, but Mr. Munger only wants 1,000 people, Dahe on the side was thinking. About countermeasures, how about holding a competition? Li Huan suggested a fight? Dahe looked at Li Huan as if she was a fool. Sister, do you know that we are now labeled as heretics? How dare you hold a fight openly? Besides, we don't have the money and we don't have a venue. What should I do? Li Huan lay on the table helplessly. She opened the forum and browsed it casually. Suddenly, a post caught her attention. The photo in the post shows Lear's face and Lear's NPC information. End of this chapter. Chapter 186. Milia and Millis's reconciliation. As the days passed, a large number of players became workers, and many brave and fearless strangers who were willing to accept any commission appeared in major cities. As long as they are paid, these aliens can do anything. Lear stayed in the Pope's hall with Milia. In the room, the light of the Morning Star was flickering, and the Morning Star scepter was floating in front of Milia. Lear was not in the room now, and Milia was the only one in the room. When Milia was building new professional skills, the figure of Millis floated out from the Morning Star scepter. Seeing Millis suddenly appear, Milia raised her head. Millis has been hiding in the Morning Star scepter for some time. Milia did not restrict Millis's movements. She also tried to communicate with Millis, but Millis had not responded until now. Millis, looking at her sister floating in the air with an expressionless face, Milia didn't know what to say for a moment. How disgraceful! Millis suddenly sneered. Looking at her sister who was working hard to study skills for another man, she found it difficult to compare the woman in front of her with her former sister. The goddess of Morningstar used to be proud and noble, standing above everything else. She represented absolute majesty, but now Milia is like a little woman. Milia was not angry when she heard Millis's ridicule. The fact that Millis was willing to come and see her meant that she at least no longer hated her as much as before. As Millis's sister, although a long time has passed, Milia still understands Millis. Isn't it decent? I wonder what my dear sister means. A smile appeared on Milia's face. You actually got together with that mortal. And you did shameless things with that mortal. Millis said angrily, and her face turned a little red as she spoke. Are you referring to Lear? What other shameless things are there? Milia still asked with a smile, knowing the answer. It's that kind of, in short, it's a shameless thing. Millis's cheeks became even redder. What about my sister who peeked at such shameless things? Milia said slowly. Millis was stunned for a moment, not knowing how to respond. Seeing her sister's blushing cheeks, Milia's mood became cheerful. Millis was her younger sister and had never experienced any relationship between men and women. Although she was a goddess, she was still very naive, just like a little child, and Milia has always protected Millis too well, which has made Millis less humane. That's why after Millis was sealed, she felt betrayed and hated her so much. Millis sighed, stood up, and before Milia could react, she took Milia into her arms. I'm sorry, it's my fault. I shouldn't have left you alone. Milia said in a low voice. Being hugged by Milia, Millis's body trembled. After Milia awakened, she had been hiding in the Morningstar scepter, thinking about what Milia said. Did her sister really seal her away just to protect her? The more she thought about it, the more she felt that this was true. All along, Milia had loved her unconditionally and had never hurt her, but after thinking it through, Millis became flustered again. Before Milia awakened, she had done a lot of things to hurt her sister, including bewitching Queen Philia to die, and even trying to possess Milia. She was afraid that Milia would hate her, so she hid in the Morningstar scepter and never came out. Every day, Millis hid in the Morningstar scepter and watched her sister. After watching for a while, Millis couldn't stand it anymore. Milia and that mortal were together every day, which made her very jealous. How could a mortal get her sister, and she does such shameful things to her sister every day? So, until today, while Lear was away, she emerged from the scepter of Morningstar, wanting to make her sister change her ways. Feeling her sister's embrace, Millis's nervous heart slowly calmed down. Milia was still the same Milia. Except for falling in love with a mortal, Milia was still her sister. I'm sorry, Millis said in a hoarse voice. Hearing Millicai's voice, Milia was stunned for a moment, and then some tears overflowed from her eyes. No, it's not Millicai's fault, it's all my sister's fault. The two girls hugged each other, and the gap between the sisters disappeared at this moment. After a long while, the room calmed down. Melis hugged Milia, raised her head, and looked at Milia with a pair of beautiful black eyes. Sister, what's so good about that mortal Lear? Why do you have to accommodate him so much? Humor him? Yes, sister, you want to create a new profession for him and are willing to share it with the Lord of Blood. I can also feel that there is not only your sister's aura on that mortal, but also the aura of other women. Melis said angrily. Hearing what Melis said, Milia was stunned for a moment, then laughed and said, Are you jealous? No, no. Melis retorted with a blushing face. Milia shook her head, recalling the memories related to Lear. Obviously Lear was so excessive to her at the beginning, but as they got along later, she realized that Lear was not a bad person. Although her attitude is sometimes very tough, it cannot be considered a shortcoming. When she was still a weak princess, Lear's toughness was even more attractive. Moreover, Lear would respect her ideas and even choose to die in order to make her awaken. Although she could be resurrected, coming back to life would still be risky. That's why she fell in love with Lear. I don't care. Can you please stop staying with that mortal all the time in the future? Melis said coquettishly. Milia was a little helpless. Melis used to be like this, always liking to pester her, but that was no longer possible because she was married. Lear had no idea what was happening in the bedroom, nor did he know that he had inexplicably gained a rival in love. At this time, he came to the training ground of the Pope's Hall, where Avian and Greta were fighting with Tavini and Princess Maya. Avian and Greta were on one team, and Divine and Maya were on the other, and the battle between the two sides was fierce. The four beautiful women attracted many war believers to watch. All four were high-level professionals, and Maya was the strongest. She was not just a beginner like the other three, but was already close to transcendence. The magic of the arcane was like agile tentacles, constantly attacking Avian and Greta. Triveni also released a fire spell, and the fireball was incredibly powerful. This was the mage's attack. It looked extremely elegant as it destroyed the enemy before it could even touch him. Lear stood not far away and watched. His eyes fell on Maya. From beginning to end, Maya did not make any unnecessary movements, just casting his spell Arcane Blast. An improved version of the basic spell Arcane Missiles, a very peculiar spell with no tears. Rumor has it that this is a spell created by Maya. Unlike Arcane Missiles, the magic released by Arcane Blast is more flexible. It can hit whatever you point at, just like a wizard's arm. The magic power consumption is also different from other spells. The power of Arcane Blast varies depending on the amount of magic input, and depending on the mage's magic level. In the hands of an extraordinary level mage, this spell can exert extraordinary level spell power. This spell can be said to be an all-round attack spell, and it is also a spell that must be learned by mage players in the previous life. There is another name for Arcane Blast, the mage's basic attack, the Dark Purple Arcane. Magic continued to attack Ivian and Greta, but Ivian and Greta were not to be trifled with. The shadow of a mad lion appeared behind them, and the storm gathered around Ivian. In an instant, the storm wrapped around Ivian, and Ivian's speed increased significantly. On the other side, Dival, Erwin and others were also watching the fight between the four women. When Dival saw Avian's actions, his eyes lit up. As the Pope of War, he saw through Avian's fighting skills at a glance. Enchanting himself with the power of the storm to increase his speed was another new fighting skill. After seeing Lier's storm sword in Pharaoh Fortress, he was ready to spread the skills of the storm sword in the church, but he didn't expect there would be a surprise. The speed of the sudden outburst startled both Divine and Maya, but the two women reacted quickly, with arcane shocks continuing to attack Avian, as well as Divine's frost spell. Ivian ignored the attacks from the two men. The power of the storm gathered and wrapped around the sword in her hand, followed by a violent stab. Avian's speed increased to a new level again, and a white light appeared under her feet. Charge! In an instant, Avian broke through the spell interception network of Tavini and Maya and came directly in front of the two women. The raging storm blade stabbed towards Tivini without hesitation, and a magic shield emerged in front of Tivini. This was the last protection for the mage when she was approached, but under the storm stab with the storm enchantment, this magic shield was like paper and was shattered in an instant. Tivini's face turned pale all of a sudden. At this moment, Maya grabbed Tivini. A dark purple light lit up and the two bodies disappeared instantly. When he reappeared, he had already arrived at the other side of the training ground. The mage's life-saving skill flashes. When Maya and Divine appeared on the other side, Divine's face was a little pale. She was really scared at that moment. She had never experienced a real battle before. They were all duels in the academy, and she had never fought with other legal professionals. Maya's expression was also a little ugly. The war knight in front of her was beyond her expectations and was different from the war knight she had seen before. The attack was fierce and swift, and the speed was almost the same as that of a nimble profession, but the war knight was obviously not a nimble profession. On the other side, Greta was also a little surprised. She saw that Avian was using a new technique, just like the storm sword, which she had never seen before. Okay, let's end the fight here. Not far away, Dival and Irvin had already walked over. Alvin walked over to Tivany and checked her carefully. He was relieved to find that she was not injured. The fight just now really scared him. The speed that Avian burst out was too amazing. Even for him, if he didn't take precautions in advance, he would probably be hit. Avian, did you also use Callback the Storm just now? Greta trotted over and looked at Avian eagerly. Yes, Lear taught me. Avian nodded. Lear? Greta was stunned for a moment, and Duval beside her also showed a thoughtful expression. They are just some simple techniques. If Your Holiness the Pope needs it, you can ask my sister to teach these skills to the church. Not far away, Lear walked over slowly. This is a variant of the storm raising technique that I researched. It was also used on the storm sword before. What my sister showed just now was the storm enchantment plus the storm thrust. With the combination of the two powers, a mid-level war knight can also burst out power close to that of a high-level knight. However, such a skill requires a relatively high level of control over magic power. Lear explained when he came in front of everyone. Special Executive Lear, I thank you for your selflessness on behalf of the believers of war. Duval said with a serious expression of gratitude. This thank you comes from the heart. If such skills are popularized among war knights, the combat effectiveness of all war knights will definitely be raised to a higher level. Nothing, I am also a believer in war, so naturally I want to see the Church of War become stronger. Lear waved his hand casually. The war believers who were watching from all sides showed respectful expressions after hearing what Lear said. Over the past few days, they had also heard that a special executive had appeared in the church to oversee the entire church. There had been some estrangement originally, but now the estrangement had disappeared. Your Holiness can discuss these skills with my sister, Lear said again. He ignored Avian's annoyed look and looked at Maya. Princess Maya, do you have time to discuss magic with me? Communication spell? Maya was stunned. Not only Maya, but everyone else was stunned as well. Dival looked at Lear and suddenly remembered the rumors that Lear was a dual professional. In addition to being a war knight, Lear was also a mage. Yes, Princess Maya should have heard of me. I am a dual law professional and can also use spells. Lear smiled and stretched out his hand. A cold ice arrow appeared in Lear's hand. What is your current level of magic? Maya asked, looking at the ice arrow in Lear's hand. You can only cast some mid-level spells. Because of your affinity with the arcane law, you cannot learn high-level spells now. Lear replied. Listening to Lear's words, Maya thought for a moment. It was very common in the Arcane Council that the affinity with the arcane law could not be improved. This was due to talent. After all, there were always people who were not favored by the arcane. I can communicate with you about spells, but I can't guarantee that I can help you improve. Maya nodded. Thank you very much. Even if I can't improve myself, I will definitely gain something from communicating with Her Royal Highness the Princess. A smile appeared on Lear's face. End of this chapter. Chapter 187. Milia's new skilled moon robe star armor. He had been coveting the source of arcane law in Maya for a long time. His arcane law affinity is now 13.5%, still some distance away from 20%. When he was in the Farah Fortress, there was no spellbook that could allow him to recombine and create new spells, so his affinity with the arcane law could not be improved. Lear was not very interested in the wizard's spells. The skills of the War Knight and the Blood Apostle were enough for Lear to deal with most situations, but there was one skill that Lear always kept in mind. The Blood Demon has the same origin. This was the thank you gift from Archmage Elvin after he rescued Divine in the royal city of Brayful. The effect of Blood Demon's origin is that the consumption of skill release is replaced by health points of the same value. As long as Lear learns this skill, the time Lear can maintain Aslan royal swordsmanship can be greatly improved. Although Lear now possesses the Dream Core and has almost endless magic power, the magic power in the old dream does not belong to Lear himself, and the Aslan royal swordsmanship consumes a percentage of magic power and cannot be used directly by calling on the magic power in the old dream. Therefore, the usage time of Lear's Aslan royal swordsmanship is still only 100 seconds. But with the blood demon origin, the situation is different. Then let's make an appointment for tomorrow? Lear suggested to Maya. Okay. Maya nodded. She never objected to someone asking her for advice on spells. This was the case when she was in Kalia. She was a lecturer at Kalia's Arcane Academy. See you tomorrow, then. After receiving the reply, Lear smiled at Maya and turned away. Everyone present felt something was strange as they watched Lear's departing back. Lear was a dual law professional, so there was nothing wrong with him exchanging spells with Maya, but it always gave people the feeling that Xiang Zhuan was dancing with a sword, aiming at Pei Gong. Erwin looked at Maya. Maya's beauty was extremely rare in Kalia. In Erwin's opinion, the only one who could compare with Maya was Lear's wife Milia. Could it be that Lear has a crush on Maya? If this is the case, it will be difficult to deal with. Although Lear's strength and status are enough for Maya, will the royal family of Kalia choose a person from the Church of War as Maya's husband, and Lear already has a wife? Your Highness, do you need me to accompany you tomorrow? Erwin asked. Accompany? Maya looked at Erwin. Do you think Special Executive Officer Lear will harm me? No, it's just. Erwin opened his mouth and looked at everyone present. Some things cannot be said in public. I know what you are worried about. Looking at Erwin's expression, Maya suddenly chuckled. She was very smart and knew what Erwin was thinking. I am a believer in the arcane. The arcane is the only thing in my heart. Master Elvin, there is absolutely no need for you to worry. Maya smiled slightly and looked at Lear's back in the distance. She admitted that Lear was excellent in all aspects, but she was a believer in the arcane. As early as the moment she became a wizard, she had decided to devote everything to the arcane. She is not interested in any love affairs between men and women. On the way back to the guest room, Lear pondered how to gain affinity with the arcane law. The most convenient way is to capture and imprison Maya, just like what was done to Milia and Ophinia. But if you want to do that, you have to plan it carefully and not alert the enemy god if he attacks Maya directly. He doesn't know if Maya has any trump cards. If he alarms Erwin, he will offend even the Arcane Council. The kidnapping of Ophinia has already offended the Golden Church, and the previous break into the Pope's Hall also made the War Church lose face. If Maya is kidnapped again, it will offend the three major Orthodox sections. Even though Lear was confident in his current strength, he was still somewhat overwhelmed. You should know that the three major sects are not only found in the three major kingdoms and the Rhodes Empire. Outside the Decision Mountains, the vast land is the real home of the three major sections right now. This place can only be described as a novice village, with the highest level of professionals only at the extraordinary semi-saint level, which is not truly powerful at all. The blood cult is about to show up, and Lear has more to consider. If he forcibly abducts Maya and the matter is exposed, he will probably be labeled as an evil villain among the player community, which will make the reputation of the blood cult that he has established in the royal city of Brethel become useless. Lear walked in thought, came to the guest room, and pushed open the door directly. As soon as he entered, the azure light of the morning star law came into view, mixed with a hint of dark purple light, which was the light of the dark star Law. Lear looked closely and saw that next to Milia, a girl with black hair and black eyes who looked like Milia was sitting obediently next to Milia, saying something to her from time to time. Seeing this scene, Lear was stunned for a moment, but only for a moment. He walked into the room and closed the door. Seeing Lear come in, Mealy snorted and turned her head away. Sister, I'll go back first. Mealy's left a word and went straight back into the Chinching scepter. Lear and Miria were the only ones left in the room. She called you sister? Have you reconciled? Lear took off his coat and put it on the cabinet beside him. I guess so. Milia nodded, then picked up the floating morning star scepter. I have already built a new professional skill. Do you want to try it? Of course. A hint of curiosity appeared on Lear's face. Milia had always said that she would create exclusive skills for him, and he was looking forward to it. After receiving Lear's reply, Milia did not hesitate. The morning star scepter emitted light and then sank into Lear's body. You have obtained extraordinary skills, Moon Robe Star Armor. Super skill, Moon Robe Star Armor Introduction, a unique skill created by the goddess of Morning Star and Dark Star, which brings together the power of Dark Moon and the stars. Effect 50, Dark Moon Robe, condenses the Dark Star magic to form a robe. Your attack damage increases by 50%, movement speed increases by 30%, and all magic consumption is reduced by %. Effect 50, Morning Star Armor, condenses the magic power of Morning Star to form armor, reduces all damage you receive by 1%, restores % of your maximum health per second, and is immune to all curses and control effects. Only one effect can be activated at a time. Skills have no cooldown time and consume mana continuously during skill activation. Learning requirements, exclusive to the King of Morningstar, Mystical Attribute 80, Intelligence Attribute 60. The system prompt flashed in front of Lear's eyes. Looking at the newly acquired skills, Lear couldn't help but take a deep breath. What kind of incredible skill is this? In a Moon Robe and Star Armor, one for attack and the other for defense. The attributes enhanced by the two effects are stronger than the extraordinary skills of ordinary law professions. Perhaps they are slightly inferior to Blood Source Liberation, but Blood Source Liberation is a fusion of the divine blood of the corrupted true spirit. How is it? Seeing Lear's silence, Milia asked nervously. Emilia. Lear raised his head, and before Milia could react, he pulled Milia into his arms. I like it very much. Thank you for your hard work. As long as you like it. After receiving the reply, Milia breathed a sigh of relief and a smile appeared on her face. Did you and Millis create this skill together? Lear suddenly asked. Yes, Millis and I have the same power, so we can create more powerful skills. Milia nodded, thinking back to the conversation with Millis just now. She had spent a lot of effort to convince Millis to help her. It seems I should thank Millis as well. Lear nodded. Let's do that next time. Milia replied somewhat awkwardly. Millis was still upset about becoming Lear's wife. Well, let's do it next time. Lear smiled, but he didn't notice anything strange about Milia. Instead, he felt a little uncomfortable. By the way, I have an appointment with Princess Maya to exchange spells tomorrow. Lear said with a light cough. Princess Maya? Milia was stunned. Yes, I can gain law affinity from the carrier of law source substance. Lear explained. So you have your eyes on Maya? Milia's eyes turned somewhat unfriendly. I guess so. But don't worry, Milia, Lear wanted to argue. Milia put her hand on Lear's lips and interrupted him directly. I don't care what you want to do to Maya, but I hope you understand that you are the king I chose and my husband. No woman likes her husband to look for other women outside. Milia's tone was particularly strict. It was the first time that Lear saw Milia's expression like this, and he was a little stunned. After a long while, Lear said helplessly, Milia, I assure you, I just want the affinity of the arcane law, and I have no other ideas about Maya. That's better. Milia snorted softly, and then she kissed Lear on the lips. Under Lear's surprised gaze, the sky outside had darkened, the moon rose, and soon the lights in the room also dimmed. The next day, Lear left the room alone, feeling physically exhausted. He was almost drained by Milia last night. It turned out that the goddess was not so easy to control. In the room, after Lear left, Milia also got up from the bed. The quilt slipped off her body, revealing her fair and smooth skin. The morning star scepter beside it lit up at this time, and Millis floated out from the scepter with a blush on her face. Millis saw everything that happened last night from beginning to end. His sister. He's such a philanderer. Why are you still willing to be with him? Millis said dissatisfiedly. Millis, I love him, so I can tolerate him. At least he told me about Maya, right? Milia said with a smile, but, Millis, you have to know that all men are like this. Wasn't it the same in our time? Milia interrupted Millis, men are greedy. The stronger and more powerful a man is, the more he is like this. Besides, Lear is still very young. However, although I can tolerate Lear, such tolerance is also limited. Milia said again, she could indeed allow Lear to have other women. She knew everything about Adele and Eno. Astrology had restrictions on Lear, but not on others. Milia can allow Lear to have more women, but not without restrictions. Otherwise, how can she bring back every beautiful woman she sees? That's why she was so serious to Lear last night. As a warning, Lear said he had no thoughts about Maya, but who knows about such things? Just like Ophenia, who was imprisoned by Lear, Milia could also feel the transformation of Ophenia when they were in the royal city before. What will such imprisonment become in the end? Milia knew it well. Lear had no idea what Milia was thinking. He just felt his body was hollowed out. He used magic to adjust his state in the empty garden, and then walked towards Maya's residence. When I arrived at Maya's residence, I saw Maya and Tiffany coming out. "Good morning, Special Executive Lear." Maya greeted Lear when she saw him. "Good morning, Princess Maya." Lear smiled and nodded. "Special Executive Lear, how do you want to communicate magic with me?" Maya asked. "Princess Maya, we are about the same age, so just call me Lear. When we exchange spells, it naturally doesn't mean to just talk about it on paper. Why don't we go to the training ground?" Lear suggested. Hearing Lear's proposal, Maya nodded. "Okay," she said as she looked at Divine, who was standing beside her. "Divine, will you come with us?" "Okay." Tiffany nodded, but her eyes were always on Lear. Lear had no objection to Maya's decision. He felt a faint mental force probing him, which was obviously Alvin. The great wizard was obviously worried about leaving Maya and him alone, so he asked Divine to look after them. Lear smiled. He just wanted to increase the affinity of the arcane law and cause Maya to have negative emotional fluctuations. There was no need to be too extreme. He had already thought of a solution. "Then shall we set off now?" Lear spoke again. Maya and Divine looked at each other and nodded without saying anything else. The three of them walked towards the training ground together. In order not to interfere with the training of the war believers, Lear deliberately took the two women to a separate empty training ground. Walking into the training ground, there are many training dummies placed in the center. "Special Executive Lear, I don't want to discourage you, but if you are unable to learn high-level spells due to your affinity with the arcane law, I may not have a better solution." Before the communication began, Maya gave Lear a shot of prevention in advance. She had a good impression of Lear and didn't want to create a gap with Lear because of this exchange. After all, Lear was an extraordinary strong man, and it would be best to be friends with him. "It doesn't matter. Even if this exchange is just about some spells, it will definitely be helpful to me." Lear nodded nonchalantly. "Okay then, now let me see what spells you know, Special Executive Officer Lear." Maya also nodded. End of this chapter. Chapter 188. Princess Maya is shocked. In the training ground, a lavender arcane light flickered around Lear, and he released spells one after another. Frost Arrow, Freeze, Magic Shield, Frost Nova. Almost all of them were ice spells, which was also the spell that Lear majored in before. Maya and Divine watched from the side without any expression. These are all common spells, and only Frost Nova is somewhat complicated among the intermediate spells. Lear was casting spells on his own while observing Maya's reaction imperceptibly. Suddenly, a dazzling purple light appeared in his hand, and the arcane missile expanded rapidly and finally turned into a cannonball. The shell drew a purple arc and smashed into the training dummies. The horrifying arcane magic raged, instantly blowing these dummies that were strong enough to withstand mid-level magic attacks into pieces. When watching this spell, the expressions of Divine and Maya changed significantly. Tuwini's expression was a little complicated. Lear's arcane cannon. This is a spell created by Lear himself. It was from that time that Lear's attitude towards her changed, and the subsequent development was out of control. The name of the dual law professional spread in the royal city. Lear had taken good care of her before, but now there is nothing. Maya was also shocked by Lear's spell. It was a spell she had never seen before, and it was quite powerful. The grade of the spell is probably mid-level, but its power is close to high level. With the blessing of Lear's extraordinary level of strength, it can be said that this spell has reached the level of an excellent high-level spell. She had been studying arcane since she was young, and she had seen almost all the spells of the Arcane Council, but she had no impression of such an excellent spell. Lear was standing not far away. Seeing Maya's expression, a barely perceptible smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. How can a princess obsessed with the arcane attract someone? Of course, it is to cater to his preferences. Lear's arcane cannon is a very powerful spell, but Lear doesn't use it often. With his current strength, even if he infuses magic power and uses the sword to attack, the power will not be less than this arcane cannon, and it will be faster. The arcane cannon has to be charged up before it can be used, which makes it completely useless, but it was enough to attract Princess Maya's attention. After all, the arcane cannon spell was created by players themselves and does not exist in the game. How is it, Princess Maya? Lear walked towards Maya and asked humbly, "Was the spell just now improved from arcane missiles?" Maya did not answer Lear's question, but asked instead, "Your Highness, the princess is worthy of being a member of the Arcane Parliament." She saw it at a glance. Lear nodded. "Where did you learn that spell?" Maya continued to ask. Her tone was a little anxious. The spell just now was extremely excellent. To be able to improve such a spell from arcane missiles, this person must be a mage with a very deep understanding of the arcane. There are too few people like this. Even in the Arcane Council, there are only a handful of wizards who can improve their own spells. In the history of the Arcane Council, the last powerful spell created by itself was the Arcane Blast, which was improved by Maya through arcane missiles. Seeing Maya's anxious look, Lear knew that he had achieved his goal and had successfully hooked the princess. Just when he was about to explain, Tawini spoke up for Lear. This spell was created by Lear himself. Tawini said, with an inexplicable sense of pride in her tone. Lear opened his mouth and his brows twitched slightly, but he didn't say much. Lear created it himself? Maya widened her eyes, somewhat unable to believe it. She turned her head and looked at Lear. Although the spell just now seemed to use more magic power to enhance the power of arcane missiles, it was definitely not that simple to create such a spell. The skill of arcane missiles is extremely special, and it is a spell directly bestowed by the goddess of arcane. The arcane missile spell rune is truly a perfect spell rune. Both the structure and the magic channel are perfect. Any change will destroy the rune and cause the arcane missile spell to collapse. Unlike spells created by other mages, the arcane missile spell is bloated, imperfect, and has a huge room for improvement, but there is almost no room for improvement. Therefore, arcane missiles is also known as the most difficult spell to improve. Even Maya's arcane blast took her 5 full years to improve based on arcane missiles. The improved arcane blast is more versatile, but of course more difficult to learn. Did you really create that skill just now? It took Maya a while to react. Yes, Your Highness, it took me a lot of effort. In order to marry my wife, I spent a week to improve this spell. Lear nodded and answered seriously. After these words were spoken, Maya was stunned again. The way she looked at Lear became strange, with a hint of strange emotion in it. A week's time, Maya clenched her fists. It took her 5 years to create her arcane blast, a spell improved from arcane missiles. Although it seemed that her arcane blast was more powerful, the time difference was too big. Could it be that the special executive of the war church in front of him is a genius? Oh, by the way, I also have a spell of my own. Lear suddenly spoke again. Anything else? Maya was stunned. Yes, but it's just a defensive spell that I constructed casually. Lear nodded. I wonder if Princess Maya knows a mid-level fire spell. I can cast it for you to see. A defensive spell against fire spells? Maya seemed to understand the effect of Lear's spell. Yes. Maya nodded. After seeing the arcane cannon, Maya was not so surprised by the new spell. After all, Lear could improve the most difficult arcane missiles, so it would be no big deal to improve another spell. She paused, took out her staff, and planned to see what the spell was. Special Officer Lear, be careful, Maya said in a deep voice. Your Highness, just cast your spell. Lear smiled. Maya did not reply. The light of arcane gathered on the staff. A scorching flame appeared out of thin air and condensed into a scorching flaming spear in the air. The intermediate spell Flame Lance is considered to be the intermediate fire spell with the strongest single target damage. Lear stepped back, a faint arcane light flickering in his hands. Seeing Lear preparing arcane magic but not seeing any protective shield, Maya frowned. Special Executive Officer Lear, why don't you release your defensive spell? Your Highness, just attack. I will use you when needed. Lear waved his hand casually. Seeing Lear's confident look, Maya frowned even deeper. She didn't know what Lear's defensive spell was, but Lear's current attitude made her a little dissatisfied. Even though Lear was a war knight of extraordinary level, how could she not be angry when he looked down on her like this? Lear's casual attitude was naturally regarded as contempt by Maya. She gritted her teeth, snorted softly, and rushed towards Lear with the flaming spear in her hand without any hesitation. The speed of the flame spear technique was very fast, and the burning sensation was transmitted to Lear's face, but Lear remained indifferent. Seeing this scene, Maya's sense of Lear decreased a lot. At such a close distance, even if she activated the defensive spell, it would be of no use. Lear was an extraordinary war knight. Although he would not be seriously injured, he would still suffer. Let you underestimate me, Maya said angrily in her heart, but at this moment, a faint wave of arcane magic was transmitted, and the flaming spear disappeared out of thin air before Maya could react. The flames died out before Lear's eyes, leaving nothing behind. As Divine looked at this scene, the scene in the royal city of Brayfield appeared in her mind. That was how Lear was able to remain unscathed by Eric's fire spell. Until today, she still didn't understand what happened. What did you do? The training ground was silent for a long time before Maya came back to her senses and asked in shock. She didn't even realize what happened just now. This is another spell I created, the fire extinguishing spell. Lear slowly walked towards Maya. Extinguishing fire technique? Yes, this is a spell improved on the basis of vacuum magic. Lear explained. Vacuum spell? Maya was stunned for a moment. She knew this spell, which was used to drain out the gas within a range. It was usually used to clear smoke and weaken the power of some fire spells. Your Highness, I wonder if you have noticed that draining the gas in the range will cause ordinary flames to stop burning. Even fire spells can be driven by arcane magic, but their power will be greatly weakened. Lier continued to explain. On the basis of the vacuum technique, I added a power that can interfere with the stability of spell runes, which formed the fire extinguishing technique. All mid-level and lower fire spells will not be effective under the interference of the fire extinguishing technique. As Lear finished speaking, Maya and Tivani fell silent. Maya's eyes were filled with horror. All fire spells of intermediate level or below will be ineffective. What kind of incredible power is this? Due to the powerful power of fire spells, a large number of mages will choose fire spells as their main spell. Now this fire extinguishing spell directly makes intermediate and lower level fire spells ineffective. Doesn't this directly mean that a large number of mid-level and lower fire mages will be unemployed? Intermediate level is already considered a powerful professional. High-level professionals are also managers in major forces. As for the extraordinary ones, they are the top force in the Three Kingdoms and even the Rhodes Empire. If this spell were to spread, a large number of mid-level fire mages in the Arcane Council would be restrained. The shock and emotion fluctuation value of the Arcane Law element carrier reaches 90%, and you gain 1% Arcane Law affinity. A system prompt appeared in front of Lear, and a hint of joy flashed in Lear's eyes. After so much effort, he finally saw the long-lost increase in Law affinity, but there was still a gap of 5.5%, so he needed to keep working hard. What's wrong? Lear asked puzzledly, pretending to be calm. Special Executive Lear, don't you know what impact your spell will have on the Arcane Council if it spreads? Maya took a deep breath. It's just a small spell. I just made it casually. What effect can it have? Lear pretended to be stupid. Hearing this, Maya almost gasped. It took her 5 years to create Arcane Blast, but you created Arcane Cannon and Extinguishment in just 1 week, and you did it so easily? Why don't you go to heaven? The anger fluctuation value of the Arcane Law element carrier reaches 92%, and you gain 1% Arcane Law affinity. Looking at Lear's indifferent expression, Maya felt annoyed. She didn't know whether Lear was pretending or really didn't care, but she was very angry. However, Maya could only keep smiling on the surface. Special Executive Officer Lear, you are not a mage in the council, so you may not know that most of the mages in the council practice fire magic. If your fire extinguishing technique spreads, these mages who specialize in fire magic will have wasted half their life's research. Looking at the system prompt that popped up again, Lear smiled. Is it really that serious? Then I won't spread this spell. I was originally thinking that if the Arcane Cannon and Flame Extinguishment were handed over to the Arcane Council, could they be replaced with other spells? In that case, forget it. Special Executive Lear intends to hand over these 2 spells to the Arcane Council? Maya asked hurriedly after hearing Lear's words. Yeah, it's useless in my hands anyway, and I don't use it normally. Lear nodded. If Special Executive Lear intends to hand over these 2 spells to the Arcane Council, I can decide to exchange them with you for other spells. Maya said excitedly. I wonder what spell Special Executive Lear wants. Maya asked again, looking at the anxious look of the princess in front of him, as if she had seen some treasure. Only someone who was extremely obsessed with the arcane would be like this. A smile appeared on Lear's face. Now that Maya wanted his spell, the initiative was in his hands. The Arcane Council had a lot of good things. Since Princess Maya can make the decision, I can naturally exchange with Her Royal Highness. However, spells like the fire extinguishing spell should have a value beyond its own level. I wonder what spells Her Royal Highness can take out to exchange with me. Lear asked with a smile. Listening to Lear's words, Maya came back to her senses from her excitement. Looking at the handsome young man in front of her, she suddenly had an inexplicable feeling that she had been fooled. Was this Lear's purpose? To obtain powerful magic from her, but looking at Lear's harmless appearance, it doesn't seem like that. Shaking her head slightly, Maya suppressed the strange thoughts in her mind. Forget it, it's just exchanging spells, so I won't lose anything. Special Executive Lear, I have knowledge of almost all the mid and high-level spells of the Parliament. Why don't you make a request and I will come up with some spells for you to choose from? Maya suggested. End of this chapter. Chapter 189, Genius Lear and Arcane Counterattack. Since Her Royal Highness the Princess is interested in the Council's mid and high level spells, I'll just say it straight. I want your 0-grade spell Arcane Blast, your mid-level spell Interference spell, and your low-level spell Magic Isolation. Lear directly stated the spells he wanted. Hearing the spell name announced by Lear, Maya and Divine both felt a little strange. Arcane Blast is Maya's original spell. It is very versatile and powerful. It is also a popular spell in the Arcane Academy. It is understandable that Lear wants to learn it, but what about disturbing spells and magic isolation? Disturbing spell is a very unpopular spell. Although it is an intermediate spell, almost no one learns it. Interfering with the enemy's spells, making them unable to hit, is considered a defensive magic. A mid-level spell whose effect is only to interfere with the enemy's spell hits can be said to be an extremely rubbish spell, and the spell runes of the interference spell are very complicated. The effect is obviously very bad, but the difficulty of learning is very high, which leads to the fact that almost no one is interested in this. Spell.as for magic isolation. It is also an unpopular spell with a simple effect, which is to isolate the conduction of magic. It is generally used to store magical items to prevent the magic of the items from dissipating due to spontaneous spread, such as some precious herbs. Special Executive Lear, do you really only need these 3 spells? Maya asked after a few seconds of silence. Among these 3 spells, only Arcane Blast is valuable, the other 2 spells are useless spells. However, Lear's Arcane Cannon and Flame Extinguishment are different. The former can be said to be top-notch among mid-level spells, while the latter can change the current situation in which fire magic is prevalent in the Arcane Council. In fact, Special Executive Lear can ask for some high-level spells. Your fire extinguishing spell is valuable enough. Maya said carefully. No need, Princess Maya. My affinity with the arcane law is not yet enough to learn high-level spells. These 3 spells are enough. Lear smiled. Okay then, but these 3 spells are not worth your 2 spells. If Special Executive Lear needs them, you can come to me later. I will teach you a mid-level or high-level spell for free. Maya said seriously, as if she didn't want to take advantage of Lear. Lear smiled and nodded, and did not reject Maya's kindness. A high-level spell was not of much use to him, but it is always good to have more skills. Then I'll trouble you, Princess. Then I will start teaching you from Arcane Blast. Maya also nodded. Arcane Blast and Spell Disruption are both relatively complicated spells. If Special Executive Officer Lear has any questions, you can always ask me. As she spoke, she waved the staff in her hand, and spell runes appeared in the air. Lear watched the scene quietly. He didn't understand anything, but he looked very serious. At the same time, a system prompt popped up in front of him. Maya Kalia taught you the ungraded spell Arcane Blast. Do you want to learn it? Study. Lear chose to study, and the next moment, all the information about Arcane Shock appeared in his mind. Skills also appear in the skill bar. Ungraded spell, Arcane Blast Introduction, a powerful spell modified from arcane missiles by Princess Maya of the Kalia royal family. Effect, analyzes arcane magic, discards all other abilities, and purifies arcane magic into the purest attack. Depending on the amount of magic released, it will exert different powers. Learning requirements: Arcane Law Affinity 10%, Intelligence Attribute 50, Mystical Attribute 10. The information about the Arcane Blast skill is exactly the same as what I saw in my previous life. Arcane Blast does not require a high affinity for the arcane law, but the difficulty lies in the attribute requirements. 50 points of intelligence and 10 points of mysticism. This is the level that only some powerful mid-level wizards have, but these are not important to Lear. Maya was explaining attentively. The runes of the arcane impact spell in the air had been constructed. As a teacher, it must be said that Maya was indeed very dedicated. She showed Lear how to construct it and the method of construction bit by bit. Looking at the spell runes in the air, Maya nodded, turned her head to look at Lear, only to find that Lear was staring at her with his eyes on her chest. Following Lear's gaze, a hint of whiteness could be seen under the loose wizard's robe. Suddenly, Maya's cheeks turned red with shame. She stretched out her hand to pull her collar, and her brows were raised. Special Executive Officer Lear, are you listening to me? Image 2. Lear, who was still looking at the skill information, was startled by the shout. He quickly raised his head and saw Maya's angry look. Your Highness, of course I am listening to your instructions. Lear pretended to be innocent. What did you hear? Tell me. Maya glared at Lear. She now regarded Lear as a lustful hooligan, and her face was wasted. I'm afraid that attitude just now was all pretend. Seeing Maya's angry expression, Lear was a little confused. He just looked at the system panel and was absent-minded for a while. She shouldn't be so angry, right? After a few seconds of silence, Lear raised his eyebrows and raised his right hand. Under the shocked gazes of Maya and Tuini, the arcane light gathered, and then a ray of light carrying arcane magic was shot out directly, hitting the dummy not far away and piercing it directly. Looking at the dummy that had turned into pieces not far away, Maya opened her mouth. Have you learned this? Even the Speaker of the Parliament took 3 days to learn her arcane shock. Lear learned it in just a few minutes. That should be the case, right? Lear asked with a smile. Maya came back to her senses and looked at Lear with a complicated look. Have you really learned it? Lear raised his hand and fired another arcane blast. He answered Maya's question with facts. Yes, Your Highness, I was just thinking seriously about the spell runes just now, so I was a little absent-minded, but I didn't disobey your instructions. Lear shrugged. Maya bit her lip. She clearly saw Lear staring at her chest, but now Lear really learned arcane impact. Was it really a misunderstanding? She took a deep breath. No matter what, Lear learned arcane shock in just a few minutes. Such talent was so terrifying. Since you have already learned arcane blast, I will teach you the art of disturbing spells next. Maya said immediately. She wanted to see whether Lear's move was a coincidence or he really had an amazing talent. 10 minutes later, seeing how easily Lear had mastered the spell of disturbing the mind and the isolation of magic power, Maya began to doubt her life. Image 3. She has always been the genius of the Parliament, and no one can compare to her, but now Lear has trampled all her pride on the ground. Whether it was the arcane cannon and fire extinguishing spell that Lear created, or the speed at which Lear was learning spells now, it was unbelievable to her. The only consolation is probably that Lear's affinity with arcane law is not high. The source of the arcane law is lost. The resentful mood fluctuation value reaches 94%, and you gain 2% of the affinity of the arcane law. The system prompt appeared in front of Lear. Now Lear's affinity with the arcane law has reached 17.5%, not far from 20%. This is how Lear thought of increasing his affinity with the law. Maya is a genius, and geniuses are arrogant. So by creating a person who was more talented than Maya, Maya can be defeated, thus gaining affinity with the law. Looking at Maya, who was standing there with lifeless eyes as if she had lost her soul, a smile appeared on Lear's lips. He did not feel sorry for the princess. She was just a tool for him to increase his affinity with the law. After learning arcane shock, spell disturbance, and magical isolation, Lear stepped aside. He didn't choose these 3 spells for fun. Raising his hand, the light of arcane shone in Lear's hand. Lear arranged the spell runes one by one and then shuffled their arrangement and combination. Arcane blast combined with spell disruption and magical isolation can create an extremely powerful spell from the past life. Arcane counterspell. This is a spell created by a player called Arcane Nemesis in the previous life. It makes any spell ineffective within a certain time and range. It is the same as the Morningstar Scepter's Morningstar Sealing spell, but this spell can only be used against professionals of arcane law. But even so, it is terrifying enough. The power of arcane counterattack does not distinguish between friend and foe. During the duration, all arcane law professionals cannot cast spells. However, the player in the previous life is not only good at spells, but also good at melee combat. Although not strong, this also makes the player invincible when fighting with arcane law professionals. Arcane counterspell has another limitation, which is that it cannot be effective against spells of a higher level than itself. Image 4. When Maya was devastated, suddenly a lavender halo spread out from Lear's body. In an instant, Taiwani and Maya, who were standing next to Lear, were startled. They inexplicably felt a strange feeling. You have created a new spell, please name it. A system prompt appeared in front of Lear. Lear's arcane counterattack. Lear added his own name to the skill name without hesitation. Naming completed. Ungraded spell. Lear's arcane counterspell introduction. Arcane spells created by Lear, the special executive of the Church of War. Perhaps this special executive is a genius who is in war but has his heart set on arcane magic. Effect. Analyze arcane magic and release a counterfield. All spells of any target within the range, including your own, will be invalid. It is only effective against spells of a level not higher than your own. During the duration of the field, each countered spell will consume magic points. The higher the level of the countered spell, the more magic points consumed. The duration is 10 minutes, and the cooldown time is 12 hours. Learning requirements: Arcane Law Affinity 10%, Intelligence Attribute 50, Mystical Attribute 20. You created the ungraded spell Lear's Arcane Counterattack, gaining 3% affinity with the Arcane Law, and you gain 5 million experience points. Your affinity for the Arcane Law has reached 20%. You gain Intelligence plus 7, Mysticism plus 3. You have triggered the high-level Mage Professional Advancement Task, Mission, Professional Trial of A. High-level Mage, Mission Objective: create any intermediate spell quest reward, Mage Professional Rank Upgrade, Qualification to learn high-level spells, spell Lear's Arcane Cannon, detected, mission completed. You have completed the professional trial of the high-level Mage, and the Mage Professional level has been upgraded. You have obtained the qualification to learn high-level spells. As Lear completed the creation of the spell of Arcane Counter, a series of system prompts appeared in front of Lear, and the aura of Arcane Law on Lear became much stronger in an instant. Maya and Divine felt the change in Lear instantly. You made a breakthrough? Maya asked in disbelief. Hearing this, Lear closed the system panel and turned around. Thanks to the teachings of Her Royal Highness the Princess, I have become a high-level magician and can now learn high-level spells. Maya opened her mouth, feeling a little dazed. Everything that Lear showed today made her feel like a dream. Oh, by the way, I just created another spell. Lear said suddenly. What? Maya was stunned. Your Highness, you can cast a spell now and see. Lear smiled mysteriously. Maya was a little confused as to what Lear was saying, but she did as he asked. She picked up the staff, and the arcane light flashed. She was about to release an arcane shock, but the arcane magic condensed on the staff seemed to be hindered by something. After trembling for a few seconds, it dissipated. Maya widened her eyes and glanced at Lear, and found that he was looking at her with a smile on his face. She frowned, and the magic power gathered again, but just like before, the condensed magic power dissipated again after a few seconds. What did you do? Maya finally discovered something unusual. She felt a faint purple halo around her. This is the new spell I created, Arcane Counter. Lear said with a smile, within 10 minutes of my Arcane Counter field, the spells of all arcane law professionals whose rank is not higher than mine will become ineffective and unusable. This is a new spell I created based on the experience gained from the fire extinguishing technique after listening to Her Royal Highness the Princess's instructions. What do you think, Her Royal Highness the Princess? Asked Lear. Impossible. How could there be such a spell? Maya couldn't believe what Lear said. If the fire extinguishing spell made intermediate level and lower fire mages ineffective, then this arcane counterattack would make all mages ineffective, not higher than his own class. Now Lear is a high-level wizard. Doesn't that mean that spells below the extraordinary level will be ineffective against Lear? Such a spell appeared in the hands of the special executive of the Church of War. If Lear was promoted to a transcendent wizard later, wouldn't it mean that no one in the Arcane Council could pose a threat to Lear anymore? Is it possible? Your Highness has already tried it, hasn't she? Lear didn't care about Maya's panic. He made an inviting gesture. If Your Highness doesn't believe it, you can try it again. Maya gritted her teeth and picked up the staff again. She used apprentice, elementary, intermediate and even advanced spells. However, no matter what spell it was, the magic power dissipated after a few seconds of condensation and could not be released at all. At this moment, Maya finally panicked. The panic emotion fluctuation value of the Arcane Law element carrier reaches 97%, and you gain 1% Arcane Law affinity. A system prompt appeared in Lear's eyes. End of this chapter. Chapter 190. Shameful Maya. Your Highness, I think you will believe it now, right? Lear said with a faint smile. How on earth did you do it? At this point, Maya had to admit it. Lear created an incredible spell, and it seemed that she had contributed to it. Lear created the new spells under her guidance. In a sense, it was she who gave the council a natural enemy, and she was also at war with the church. Maya is already in a state of confusion at this point, and from now on Lear alone will become a major concern for the parliament. She didn't understand why it turned out like this when she was just exchanging some magic with Lear. I suddenly had an inspiration, so I gave it a try. I have to thank Her Royal Highness the Princess for creating this spell. Lear smiled modestly, as if he hadn't seen what Maya was thinking at all. Since Special Executive Lear feels that I also contributed to this spell, can I hand it over to the parliament? I can exchange it with any spell, even an extraordinary spell. Maya asked tentatively. And now that the spell has appeared, it is extremely disadvantageous to the Arcane Council. We can only see if we can get the spell and use the power of the council to study it. It would be best if we can find a way to contain it. Hearing Maya's words, Lier still had a smile on his face. Maya thought Lier would agree to her request, but the next second, she heard Lier say lightly, "Of course." "No." Lier showed a playful expression, like a cunning fox showing his true face. "Your Highness, you and I both know the meaning of this spell. It's not fair to exchange it just for the extraordinary spell." "What do you want?" Maya asked. "What do you want?" Lier thought for a moment, looking up and down at Maya. Maya Kalia, as a princess of the Kalia royal family and the future queen, has a noble status, but that is all in the future. Maya now cannot command the Kalia royal family, let alone the arcane parliament. Arcane counterattack is an extremely terrifying spell. Because of this spell, the player in the previous life became a new member of the Arcane Council and gained a very high status, but Lier can barely be considered a member of the Church of War, and it is hard to say whether the Arcane Council will accept him. Lier's idea is that it would be perfect if he could get the support of the Arcane Council for this spell, but these are things for the future. We need to talk to the president of the Arcane Council. Maya is not qualified yet. Seeing Lier looking at her with lustful eyes, Maya's cheeks turned red. Thinking of Lier peeking at her just now, her face slowly became even redder. What if Lier is after his own ideas? Maya asked herself in her heart. Is it worth giving up her as a princess in exchange for this spell that can overthrow the Arcane Council? After a long silence, Maya gritted her teeth and said, "Special Executive Lier, if you are willing to join the Arcane Council and hand over this spell to the Council, I can agree to any request you make. Even if you want me to. I can." Maya said with blushing cheeks, as if she had used up all her strength. As soon as these words were spoken, the surroundings fell silent. Lier looked at Maya in surprise, and Triveni beside him also covered her lips. The air seemed to freeze. Lier was silent for a few seconds, then walked to Maya's side. He looked at Maya's delicate face carefully. She is indeed very beautiful and heartwarming. Considering her identity and future status, it seems that becoming the queen's partner of the Kalia royal family is a good decision. That way, the royal family of Kalia and the Arcane Council could be completely under control. But Lier shook his head. The spell Arcane Counter is indeed aimed at the Arcane Council, but only those who practice arcane law can learn it. Apart from the people in the Arcane Council, perhaps only Lier can learn it in the world, so the impact is not that big. Therefore, the Arcane Council will not give the precious queen's heir to others just because of this spell. Moreover, Lier is openly a high-ranking member of the Church of War. The three orthodox sects are not hostile to each other but just competitive. Even if Lier has learned arcane countermeasures, he cannot act against the Arcane Council at will. Maya was probably overwhelmed by the effect of Arcane Counter and said such things without considering the real impact at all. "Your Highness, although I am very outstanding, I am a family man," Lier suddenly said with a smile. Maya was stunned for a moment. She didn't expect Lier to answer like this. "If Her Royal Highness the Princess wants spells, please notify the other members of the Arcane Council to come and talk to me." Lier continued, giving Maya a playful smile, then took out Lier's arcane cannon and fire-extinguishing spellbook and handed them to Maya. "This is the arcane cannon and the flame-extinguishing spell. Our previous deal is now concluded." Lier said his last sentence and turned around and left. Looking at Lier's leaving back, Maya took a while to react. She thought that Lier was plotting against her, but now it seemed that was not the case at all. Thinking back on what she had just done, she wished she could find a hole in the ground to crawl into. "Your Highness," Tawini said softly with a strange look in her eyes. "Stop talking." Maya quickly stopped Tawini from speaking. "Let's go back to find Archmage Elvin. What happened today must be reported back to the Parliament as soon as possible and informed Mother." Maya continued. After saying that, he picked up his staff and walked out of the training ground. The arcane law source material carrier shaman anger fluctuation value reaches 96%, and you gain 1% arcane law affinity. Walking on the road to the Pope's Hall, a system prompt popped up in front of Lier. After taking a glance, Lier closed the door directly. In her previous life, Maya Kalia was a proud and majestic queen. He didn't expect that she had such a side to her. He shook his head, paused for a moment in the garden of the Pope's palace, and then walked out of the Pope's palace. In his perception, there were 2 red dots that had been outside the Pope's hall for a day. 2 players were marked with blood. Why are Li Huan and Dahe staying outside the Pope's hall instead of selecting players? Lier was a little confused. Outside the Pope's hall, Dahe and Li Huan were sitting in a newly opened pub not far away, watching the situation inside the Pope's hall from time to time. "Dahe, Do we really have to ask Mr. Lear for money? Li Huanhuan asked hesitantly. What's wrong? All our internal test gold coins and props are on him, dozens of gold coins. It's enough for us to hold a selection. Why not take it? Dahe said as a matter of course. But we have already joined the blood cult. Mr. Lier is the special executive of the Church of War and a hero-level NPC. Won't he kill us with his sword? Li Huanhuan said helplessly. What are you afraid of? At worst, I can just die and be resurrected. Dahe still did what he wanted. Just as the two were talking, a figure slowly walked out from inside the Pope's Hall. Lier glanced outside the Pope's Hall. It was more lively than before, with some new shops opening. The number of players was not as many as before. Most people had already accepted the job transfer mission, and now they just had to work to earn money. Seeing Lear appear, some players outside were stunned, and then they became excited. When they were about to go forward and get close to him, they found that Lear had disappeared behind the group of players. Lier pushed open the door of the tavern. When Dahe saw this scene, he immediately stood up, and Lier also looked at the two of them. Mr. Lear. Dahe came in front of Lear, feeling a little embarrassed. Although he said carefree things, when he really met Lear, Dahe still felt a strong sense of oppression. This was the pressure from the superior. Long time no see, you two. Let's go to the private room and talk. Lier smiled and directly booked a private room from the waiter of the tavern. Li Huanhuan and Dahe looked at each other in surprise. Lier's attitude was a little different from what they had imagined. The three of them came to the private room, and Lear sat down and took out a stack of gold coins, a pin, and some miscellaneous items from his storage ring. This is what you left here with me when you left. Lier put the thing down and said casually, looking at the piles of gold coins on the table. Li Huanhuan always felt uncomfortable. They joined the blood cult, but Lier did not have any hostility towards them and still kept their things well. Mr. Lear, I know what you want to say. Since you have joined the blood cult, I naturally can no longer take you in. Lier interrupted Li Huanhuan before she could speak. Aren't you going to judge us? Li Huanhuan asked in a low voice. Judge you? Lier chuckled. That is the duty of the Golden Church. But a few days ago, Lord Blood King broke into the Pope's Hall. Li Huanhuan said again. That's something that Dival should worry about. Although I am the special executive officer of the Church of War, I will not be in charge of the Church's affairs. Lier shook his head. As long as the Blood King doesn't provoke me, I won't be hostile to you. Li Huanhuan and Dahe were both a little surprised after listening to Lier's words. They originally thought that Lier would directly judge them, but now it seems that this special executive officer seems to be a little different. It was different for Lear during the beta test, and now they are even more confused. Okay, don't wander around the Pope's palace if you have nothing to do in the future. Although the War Church's attitude towards heresy is not as extreme as the Golden Church, the Blood King's actions have offended the Church. Duval won't mind judging you, Lier said, and then he stood up and left. Looking at Lier's leaving back, Li Huanhuan and Dahe both felt a sense of loss, but there was nothing they could do. They have joined the blood cult and changed their profession to the blood law profession. The spells and swordsmanship that Lier possessed were no longer something they could learn. Okay, now that we have the money, let's rent a venue and prepare for the selection, right? Now that no one has changed their job yet, how can we choose the candidates through pure competition? Dahe picked up a gold coin on the table and asked Li Huanhuan. Let's look for other talents first. Since Mr. Munger intends to establish a sect, all kinds of talents are needed. Military strength is not the only selection criterion. We should reserve some talents from all walks of life and reality, and then have the competition later. Li Huanhuan thought more long-term than Dahe. She had seen someone make such a suggestion in the forum before. Let's do this. Dahe nodded and was about to collect the gold coins on the table. What are you doing? Li Huanhuan stretched out her hand and hit Dahe. Get the money? There's also Yao Yao's savings in here, you can only take your part. Li Huanhuan said unhappily. Isn't Yao Yao in the kingdom of Kalia? I'll give her the supplies later. No. Li Huanhuan firmly objected. In the end, Dahe had to take his share, and the two of them each contributed 3 gold coins to rent a place first. After all, a selection competition involving thousands of people is not that simple. Lier had already learned about Li Huanhuan and Dahe's plan from the forum. Even Li Huanhuan's idea of recruiting talents from all walks of life was proposed by him in the forum. All that's left now is for them to select the players, Lear thought to himself, and return to the Pope's Hall. On the other side, in the guest room lobby where Maya and Tiwini lived, Alvin listened to the two women's descriptions with an incredible expression on his face. Your Highness, are you saying that Lear created a spell that can negate any spell? Yes, Archmage Alvin, this matter needs to be reported to the Parliament immediately. Special Executive Lear wants to discuss matters concerning this spell with the Parliament's top brass. Maya nodded. Well, in addition to these, there are 2 new spells. Maya took out the spell book that Lear gave her from the storage items. After coming back, she had memorized Lear's 2 spells in her mind. She looked at the spell book in her hand. The difficulty of these 2 spells was not high, and they were not as good as Arcane Blast and Spell Disruption. However, it would take her a day or 2 to learn them. However, it only took Lear a dozen minutes to learn Arcane Blast and Spell Disruption. A feeling of frustration rose from the bottom of Maya's heart again. Alvin didn't notice Maya's expression. He took the spell book and read it carefully. When he saw the effects of the 2 spells, he was shocked again. Even from his perspective as an extraordinary wizard, these 2 spells were excellent, especially the fire extinguishing spell. After looking at the spellbook in his hand for a long time, Irwin took a deep breath, raised his head and said, I will send a message to the Parliament. As for the arcane countermeasure you mentioned, I must experience it myself. So do we want to go find Lear now? Maya asked. You just came back. It's a bit hasty to look for you now. Let's do it tomorrow. I will invite Lear tomorrow. Alvin pondered for a moment and finally said he hadn't communicated with Lear for a long time. Lear used to be a student at the Arcane Academy, but now he has become a high-ranking member of the Church of War. Irwin shook his head and looked back at the spellbook in his hand. End of this chapter. Chapter 191, the qualitative change brought about by the Blood Demon's origin and the Magic Swordsman. The next day, Maya and Irwin went directly to see Lear. Wanting to see the effect of the arcane counterspell again. Lear did not refuse and demonstrated the counter area of arcane counter. Again. After personally feeling the effect of this spell, Irwin's expression became solemn. Lear, I can't make a decision on behalf of the Parliament regarding this spell. I must report to the Speaker first. Alvin said in a deep voice. He didn't say anything. He hoped that Lear could hand over this spell to the Parliament. This was unrealistic. Any wizard, after feeling the effect of this spell, will understand the importance of this spell. Even if the spell is brought back to the Parliament, it will definitely become a taboo spell. If everyone learns this spell, will all battles between mages become physical fights? That's too inelegant. Of course, no problem. Lear smiled. He wanted to use this spell to get the greatest value, and Alvin was indeed not qualified. I will report to the Speaker. If possible, perhaps the Speaker will come to see you in person. Alvin nodded. In his opinion, this spell was enough to make the Speaker come to Soros in person. Although arcane counterspell targets spells of arcane law, the Arcane Conclave may be able to make this spell more powerful. Studying spells is the responsibility of the Arcane Council. Since they can counter wizard spells, perhaps with in-depth research, they may even be able to counter other legal professions. This is all possible. After a friendly exchange, Irwin and Lear said their goodbyes. After returning to the guest room, Alvin wasted no time and quickly recorded the message using magic and released it using a hummingbird. Hummingbirds are the fastest birds in the world. The 3 major sects and kingdoms use hummingbirds to transmit important information. Considering the distance between Soros and the capital of Kalia, a hummingbird can arrive in about 3 days, which is much faster than sending messages by land. 3 days later, in the capital of Kalia Arcane Academy. On the tallest wizard tower, a beautiful woman in a wizard robe sat in front of the balcony with a spellbook in her hand. The sky was covered with a lavender halo. This was the headquarters of the Arcane Council. The woman took a sip of the tea on the table, suddenly closed the book in her hand, and looked up at the sky. A small yellow bird flew down from the sky, emitting a lavender light. It directly passed through the protective sky curtain in the air, entered the academy, and flew straight to the balcony. The woman stretched out her hand, and the bird landed on her fingertips. A crystal tied to the bird's ankle lit up, and a voice came out of it.
Speaker Larina, we have successfully arrived at Soros and met the Pope of War.
The cooperation will be carried out when the people from the Golden Church arrive, but before that I have an important matter to report. Erwin's voice continued to come out of the crystal. The woman named Larina listened quietly, her expression gradually becoming surprised.
When Erwin finished his last words, the crystal dimmed. Arcane counterattack?
Lil Stewart? Lalina muttered to herself, how interesting. It seems necessary to go to Thuras. Time passed little by little. In Soros Pope Hall, training ground, Lear is having a 1-on-4 fight with Maya, Divine, Avian and Greta. The requirement is that Lear cannot use arcane counterspells, and his magic level and physical attributes must also be suppressed to a high level.
This was proposed by Maya.
Originally, she and Tynway were just going to fight Lear, but later Avian and Greta found out, so it turned into a 1-on-4 fight. Ever since she showed her magic to Elvin, Maya has often come to Lear to discuss magic with him, bringing Divinii with her, and asking about arcane counterattack from time to time. Lear naturally knew what Maya was thinking, so Lear just practiced magic with Maya perfunctorily. At the same time, he also received additional rewards from Maya, including the fire extinguishing spell and the arcane cannon, a high-level spell. Levitation, to put it simply, is the art of flying. It is extremely difficult to fly in the game. You either have to reach the saint level or rely on props or spells. When in the royal city of Brothile, Lear once used the holy skill hoping to achieve a brief levitation, but that was just levitation, which was completely different from flying. In the early stage, the only spell that can allow flying is the mage's levitation. Levitation consumes a lot of magic power, and even a high-level wizard cannot maintain it for too long. However, this is not a problem for Lear, as he has plenty of magic power in his old dreams. While communicating spells with Maya, Lear also tried out the skill of Blood Demon Origin, and the final result made him ecstatic. The Blood Demon has the same origin, and the spell consumption of the skill is replaced by the equivalent health value. In the activated state of Aslan Royal Swordsmanship tested by Lear, 1% of the maximum magic value consumed is converted into health value, but it is not 1% of the maximum health value, but the same magic value. With the blessing of the hero template, the intelligence is 96, the mystery limit is 99, and Lear's current magic value is 13750.1%, or 137.5 points of magic power, is consumed every second, and Lear's current health value, with the tenfold blessing of the hero template, has reached a terrifying level of 179000. The magic consumption of the Blood Demon's homologous skills is converted into life consumption of the same magic value, which means that Lear can activate Aslan's Royal Swordsmanship in the future at the cost of losing 137.5 life points per second. With Lear's health of 179,000, he can maintain the Aslan Royal Swordsmanship for more than minutes. This is more than 10 times the previous seconds. Moreover, Lear can use the Blood Red Rose to devour blood during battle to restore his health, turning him into a perpetual motion machine. Lear felt that he was invincible and that no one of his class could be his opponent. In his previous life, he relied on the Aslan Royal Swordsmanship. Within the 100 seconds when the swordsmanship was activated, no player could be his opponent. But the players were not all helpless. Some powerful professionals could slowly drain his magic power, but now, there are no limits to Aslan Royal Swordsmanship. In the center of the training ground, looking at the 4 girls who were ready to go, Lear's eyes fell on Maya. He wondered what this princess was planning to do and why she wanted to compete with him. When Lear looked at Maya, Maya also looked at Lear. The duel was her strategy to show Lear the power of arcane laws. Her mother, Speaker Lorena, has sent news that she will come to the royal city of Soros to discuss the spell of arcane counter with Lear. It would be best if they could exchange it with magic, so Maya and Erwin discussed it and wanted to show Lear the power of powerful magic. If Lear is interested, then when Lorena arrives, they will have more advantages in the negotiations. Originally, Erwin was going to fight by himself, but he thought that the power of extraordinary spells was too great to be used in the Pope's Hall, so he replaced them with Maya and Divine. Later, Greta knew about the plan to fight, and Greta, who had been defeated by Lear, immediately wanted to join forces to avenge the previous defeat, so this scene happened. 5 people stood on both sides, and at Dival's command, the fight officially began. Lear took out the Night Rose, and this was the first time Maya saw Lear take out a weapon. The first to take action were Greta and Avian. Both women had mastered the skill of summoning storms. The power of the storm was bestowed on the 2 women, which instantly increased their speed, and they rushed towards Lear at an extremely fast speed. Lear raised the Night Rose slowly, summoned the storm possession as well, maintained the magic power level at a high level, and went forward to meet it. The rapier slashed across the long sword in Ivian's hand, and Lear passed directly by Ivian, then looked at Greta, who was also rushing over. Greta was holding a greatsword. With the same magic level and physical attributes, Lear's rapier naturally could not take this blow. He slightly turned his body, a lavender arcane light flashed, and the arcane impact hit Greta's hilt without mercy. The huge heavy sword flew straight out of Greta's hand. She had never expected such an outcome. She had never seen Lear's magic before, so she naturally thought of Lear as a war knight. But now that the power of the mage and the war knight have been combined, it is definitely not as simple as 1 + 1 = 2. After knocking the greatsword out of Greta's hand with one blow, a bone-chilling chill spread from Lear's body, instantly freezing Greta into an ice sculpture. Just when Lear was about to kill Greta with one sword, the attacks from Maya and Tivani finally arrived not far away. The same arcane shock and fire spear technique forced Lear to retreat. The arcane shock shattered the ice on Greta's body, and the flames of the fire lance also completely melted the ice on Greta's body. It was only at this time that Greta reacted. She quickly picked up the giant sword on the ground and looked at Lear nervously. "Don't be too careless. Although I have reduced my magic power and physical attributes to a high level, I am a dual law professional," Lear said lightly. To be honest, Lear should be a magic swordsman now, a profession that is common in traditional games, but in the world of law it can only be achieved by switching to multiple professions. Greta gritted her teeth, feeling indignant, and charged towards Lear again. Avian also attacked, and Maya and Divine not far away also raised their staffs at the same time. Under the siege of 4 people, it is indeed difficult for ordinary professionals to resist, but Lear's situation is completely different. The light of arcane bloomed on Lear, and Lear instantly soared into the air. Levitation. Once he flies up, the two war knights, Greta and Avian, will no longer be a threat to him. The first things he has to deal with are the two mages. Seeing Lear flying into the air, Maya and Divine smiled. Lear's levitation consumed a huge amount of magic power, and it was impossible for Lear to maintain it for too long. Besides, he would be a sitting duck in the air. The two women cast all kinds of spells with their staffs, but Lear had a blank expression on his face. Countless points of light lit up in the air, and arcane shocks fell like raindrops. What is spell suppression? Different from arcane counterattack, using intensive and rapid spell attacks to prevent the opponent from counterattacking is spell suppression. It usually only occurs between two mages with a huge difference in level. But Lear now has spell suppression on Maya and Divine. Faced with the endless arcane attacks like raindrops, Maya and Divine could only defend themselves. This level of attack consumed a huge amount of magic power, and Lear could not maintain the levitation spell for long. But as time went by, Lear didn't feel any loss of magic power at all. This must be cheating. We clearly agreed to limit the magic power level to a high level. Maya was a little indignant. She did not notice the faint red light flashing on Lear's body. Lear in the air had no expression on his face. He flew down quickly, and the knight rose in his hand pierced the magic shields of the two women without any hesitation. Shield breaking means exit. Then Lear looked at Greta and Avian. The two rushed towards him with the power of a storm, but facing the dense arcane impact, they could only keep retreating. The fight ended with Lear's crushing attack. "You cheated!" Maya, who had not shown her full potential, said angrily. "Princess Maya, please don't talk nonsense. How did I cheat?" Lear shrugged. The magic power of a high-level professional simply cannot sustain that level of arcane impact. Maya looked at Lear without fear, with anger in her eyes. "Your Highness, Lear did not cheat." Before Lear could explain himself, Alvin, who was watching the game not far away, came up. He looked at Lear with a serious look. Although Lear only used magic to crush Maya and the other girl, they also saw the advantages of multi-law professionals. "Special Executive Lear, did you just use the blood demon homologation?" Alvin asked suddenly. "Yes." Lear smiled and did not deny it. "Blood demons have the same origin?" Upon hearing this, Maya was also stunned. "Yes, Princess Maya, since she is a member of the Arcane Council, she should also know the skill of blood demon origin, right?" Lear smiled. "I just cast those spells based on my health points, so I didn't cheat, right?" Maya was stunned. She had never expected this. Blood demon origin was a spell unique to the Parliament. Why would Lear know it? Lear was originally a war knight with a strong physique. If he had the same origin as the blood demon, it would be possible for him to launch such an attack by converting the magic power consumption, but this is too abnormal? Why can a war knight use the skills of a mage? On the other side, Dival also came up and looked at Lier with some surprise.
The advantage of dual law professionals was now fully demonstrated.
This was an absolute crushing victory. After a brief silence, Maya came back to her senses and bit her lip. Originally, this fight was intended to show Lier the power of magic, but now she felt that Lier didn't seem to need those powerful spells. One Arcane Blast seems to be enough. The power of Arcane Blast can be increased as the level increases. Lier now has the same origin as the Blood Demon, so he has no shortage of magic power. With the flexibility and rapid casting of Arcane Blast, spell suppression can be achieved. Just like the scene just now, skills are not about quantity but quality.
Lier is also an extraordinary war knight.
Under spell suppression, he can directly end the battle in close combat. What's the use of those spells that are powerful but take a long time to cast? End of this chapter.
Chapter 192 decided to become the Blood Saint.
Okay, let's end this fight here.
Dival announced the result of the fight.
He didn't know why Maya wanted to fight with Lier, but this fight made him see a lot of things. It was the first time he saw Lier combine the power of magic and war knights to fight.
It was indeed powerful.
If he didn't know Lier's strength, he would probably suffer a great loss. In his opinion, Lier's strength is probably stronger than the Pope's other 3 war archons, which is a good thing. After all, Lier is the special executive of the church. Upon hearing this, Lier put away the Knight Rose.
In that case, I'll leave first.
He smiled at Maya and Dival, then turned and left. Seeing this, Dival smiled at Erwin, and left with Avian and Greta.
Only Maya and the other 2 were left at the training ground. Why? Why did that bastard say that all the blood demons in the meeting were from the same origin?
Looking at Lier's receding back, Maya gritted her teeth. After being beaten by Lier time and time again, and now unable to win even with 4 against 1, this was really unacceptable to the genius princess. Hearing Maya's words, Erwin on the side smiled awkwardly.
Well, I taught Lier about the origin of blood demons.
What? Maya turned her head in shock. She didn't expect that there would be a traitor next to her.
Your Highness, things are not what you think.
I gave Blood Devil's origin to Lier when I was still in the royal city of Brayful. At that time, Divine was captured by heretics, and it was Lier who saved Divine. So as a thank you gift, I gave Blood Devil's origin to Lier.
Erwin said helplessly.
At that time, I also took out 2 other extraordinary level spells, but in the end, Lier chose the Blood Demon origin, which is only a high-level spell.
It seems that Lier already had a plan at that time.
The skill of Blood Demon's origin is useless to us mages, but it's different for Lier.
Alvin sighed.
If he had known that Blood Demon's origin would have such power on Lier, he probably would not have used this spell in the first place. Although the 3 spells he took out were gifts of thanks, he actually never thought that Lier could learn them. Needless to say, how difficult it is to be promoted to a transcendental wizard.
Moreover, transcendental spells are much more complex and profound than other low-level spells.
Even if you are promoted to a transcendental, it will take several months to learn them. As for Blood Demon origin, although it is a spell unique to the council, its effect is useless and almost no one will learn it. Listening to Erwin's explanation, Maya felt unwilling but helpless. On the other side, Lier was walking on the stone pavement of the Pope's Hall. The battle just now gave him some insights. Since he is a dual law professional, he will have more options in future battles, he thought to himself and suddenly raised his eyebrows. The old dreamland of Blood King City, Blood Temple. These days, Lier's blood incarnation has been helping to transform the Blood King City in the old dream. Now the Blood King City has changed a lot. The rubble on the roads has been cleared, and various buildings have been repaired and rebuilt. Inside the temple, Athenina found the incarnation of blood and looked at the young man in front of her with his eyes closed as if he was asleep. After struggling for a long time, Athenina leaned over and knelt on the ground.
It seems that you have made a decision.
The young man suddenly opened his eyes, his bright red eyes carrying an evil color.
Lier.
Hearing the voice, Ophelia raised her head with a complicated expression. She had been thinking for a long time since Lier talked to her. She had been imprisoned by Lier for a long time, but the goddess of the Golden Law did not come to rescue her, and the Golden Church did not take any action. She was the one chosen by the goddess of Golden Law. She knew that if the goddess of Golden Law wanted to save her, she could easily find her location, but the Golden Church had not made any move. Her mother was the only one who seemed to care whether she lived or died. She couldn't let Lier hurt her mother, so she had to agree to Lier's request. Maybe becoming a saint of the blood cult wasn't such a bad thing?
At least Lear wouldn't hurt her. Although he would humiliate her, she was used to it. You should call me Mung, or the Blood King, Lear said lightly. Yes, Lord Munger. Athenina did as she was told. Since you have made your decision, I will keep my promise. Lear nodded. What are you going to do? Ophelia couldn't help but ask.
The Golden Saint has turned from evil to good and joined the blood cult.
This is a big deal. Lear smiled.
Of course I will announce this to the world in a high-profile manner.
You don't have to do anything, just be obedient.
His voice suddenly became gentle, but it sounded like a devil luring holiness into the abyss. Since the duel, Maya never came to see Lear again, and Lear had a few days of peace out. He sat in a chair on the balcony, looking at the game's official forum. Li Huan and Dahe plan to use a duel to select 1,000 candidates who can join the blood cult, and this matter has caused a lot of controversy on the forum. No one has changed their job. This is a pure competition of combat ability. I in this way, once the people recruited change their jobs, their combat effectiveness will not be weak. It may be a little unfair, but this is the best way Li Huan can think of. There are only 900 places for this competition, and spots are left. Li Huan selected some other social talents, as a sect cannot be composed entirely of fighters. Li Huan and Dahe rented a large piece of land at a horse farm in the suburbs of Soros Royal City to select candidates. This horse farm is very large and expensive, costing 2 people 10 gold coins. The racecourse was crowded with people at this time. A large number of players came here, some for selection and some just to watch the fun.
Madam? What are you planning to do in my horse farm? Why are there so many people?
The owner of the horse farm looked at the huge crowd in front of him with some panic. The initial offer of 10 gold coins was too high. He originally wanted to wait for Li Huan to bargain, but Li Huan accepted it directly with a wave of his hand. He thought he had met a sucker, but now it seems that this may not be a sucker, but perhaps the devil of death.
I should have told you when I rented it that I would hold a duel here, right?
Li Huan looked at the owner of the horse farm in surprise, whose competition has so many people. The corner of the stable owner's mouth twitched slightly. The number of people here was almost catching up with the Soros arena. Are you sure you are not doing anything illegal? The horse farm owner confirmed helplessly. Don't worry, it's just a fight.
Li Huan nodded, not knowing whether to laugh or see or why.do something illegal?
Although the player has been accepted by the 3 major sects, once he does something out of line, he will be wanted by the 3 major sections. Who dares to mess around? After getting Li Huan's promise, although he was still a little worried, the horse farm owner had no choice but to give up since he had received the money. At least for this week, the horse farm belonged to Li Huan. After smiling at Li Huan, the horse farm owner turned and left. He planned to find the church guards. If anything serious happened, he would hand it over to the church for handling. Only after the owner of the horse farm left did Li Huan look at the gathered players. There are more than 3,000 players who have registered, but there are only 900 places available, which means that only 1 out of every 3 people will be selected. I won't say more. We only have 1 week to select candidates, so we will form groups of 10 and fight. The 3 players who survive will enter the next round. Li Huan announced the rules. 3,000 people were divided into groups of 10, for a total of 300 groups, with 3 people selected from each group, which was exactly 900 people. This method is simple, but unfair, and Li Huan knows that. Sure enough, when she mentioned the selection method, many players started clamoring. I know this selection method isn't very fair, but we only have 1 week, so everything must be kept simple. However, I will still give those who are eliminated in the melee a chance. After the candidates are selected, you can challenge the person who has a quota, and the winner can replace the other person's quota. As long as it's within a week, everyone can take the challenge. The challenge time is from 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. every day. I will leave time for everyone to do other tasks. Also, each person can only challenge once. If you lose, you will lose the qualification to challenge. I hope you can seriously consider who to challenge. If the person who was originally challenged loses his spot, he can challenge again, but he only has 1 chance. Li Huan kept saying that this was the best solution she could think of. After all, she didn't have much time left. There was only less than half a month left before the 1-month deadline given to her by the Blood King. After hearing all of Li Huan's competition rules, the noise in the player group died down. If they used a free-for-all to select candidates, it would be too much of a joke. No one has changed their job yet, and 2 fists are no match for 4 hands. It is possible that a capable person would be defeated. Since there is still an opportunity for a one-on-one duel, it would be much fairer. That's it, let's start the competition now according to the groups I sent to you. Li Huahuan breathed a sigh of relief and was about to start the competition, but at this moment, an untimely voice sounded. Valkyrie, your heretical sect is openly fighting in the royal city. Isn't this a good thing? Several players in armor stepped out from the crowd. The player wears the standard armor of the Church of War and has a long sword at his waist. Li Huahuan looked over and saw 3 people in total, with IDs of Lungtu and Nolan, Lungtu and Jesse, and Lungtu and Chunfeng. Lungtu, this is the name of a professional gamer club. Li Huahuan has an impression that they have participated in many world-class game competitions. I didn't expect that even people from the professional gamer club would enter the law. Li Huahuan was a little surprised. Captain Nolan, do you have anything to say? Or do you plan to inform the Church of War? Li Huahuan asked in a deep voice. We are all players, so I naturally won't do such a thankless task. The young man named Nolan shook his head. In fact, I have been paying attention to Valkyrie since the internal beta test. I am also very interested in the game law and Blood Apostle. Now he should be called the Blood King. Nolan continued, they all say that the professions of the blood cult are very strong. I want to ask the Valkyrie for advice to see whether the professions of the blood cult are stronger or the professions of the war church are better. As Nolan spoke, the players around him fell silent. They all chose to join the blood cult after seeing how powerful the Blood King was, but the NPC's strength does not mean that the player can be as strong as the NPC. These are 2 different concepts, and Nolan has now joined the war church, so he will consider things from the war church's perspective. Originally, he also wanted to join the blood cult, but after seeing Lear's message, he chose the war church. They are all hero-level NPCs. He doesn't think Lear is worse than the Blood King. Moreover, when watching the internal test live broadcast recording of Li Huahuan, he felt that Lear was not a simple NPC. He was a dual law professional who obtained the oracle and knew the player's identity. He also appeared in the promotional PV. Although he was swallowed by the giant snake, he is still alive, which represents Lear's strength. I'm afraid Lear and the Blood King know each other. Captain Nolan just wants to compete with me? Li Huahuan felt a little strange. Yes, the Valkyrie wouldn't dare, right? Nolan smiled. Humph, I'm afraid you'll lose face if I defeat you. Li Huahuan snorted coldly. As a Valkyrie, she had a straightforward temper. You don't have to worry about this, Valkyrie. Nolan didn't care and drew out the long sword from his waist. Li Huahuan didn't waste any time and took out the weapons that she had left with Lier. Judging from the quality of weapons, both sides are similar. Now it is the early stage of the game. Nolan has just bought gold and got the money to change his job, and Li Huahuan has been preparing for the selection these days, so the 2 are at the same level. From now on it's simply a competition of professions and combat skills. Li Huahuan is very confident. She got the universal swordsmanship, the White Crow swordsmanship, from Lier. This is an elementary swordsmanship that she practiced for a long time to master. It is not just a simple gaming skill. Even in real life, she can gain powerful combat power through the White Crow swordsmanship. Both sides started to prepare for battle. Nolan didn't know much about the apprentice-level war knight Li Huahuan, but Nolan was different. He had carefully studied Li Huahuan's live broadcast video and knew that the apprentice knight had 2 skills, blood contract and bloodsucking / Nolan directly activated the war knight's apprentice skill, the Knight's Oath. Improving dual resistance and attack power is a skill that improves one's own attributes in all aspects. Although the improvement is not much, it is very practical. Li Huahuan also activated the blood contract. In the state of the blood contract, the less blood she has, the higher her attack will be, and she can also rebound a small amount of the damage caused by the opponent. In terms of skills, the Blood Knight is indeed stronger than the War Knight. Nolan didn't know the effect of Li Huahuan's skills, and he rushed forward with an apprentice skill charge. His speed increased instantly and he came directly in front of Li Huahuan. Li Huahuan was directly rushed into a dizzy state. A smile appeared on Nolan's face, and he slashed at Li Huahuan with a long sword in his hand. Chapter 193 Blood Knight vs. War Knight. Golden High Priest arrives at Soros. The long sword chopped on Li Huahuan's head, attacking the weak point. Li Huahuan's health suddenly dropped a lot. Nolan had a smile on his face. The Valkyrie was well known in the live broadcast industry. She was previously known for her fierce fighting style in various games, but she was an amateur player after all. But he is different. He grew up in a martial arts school. Both his skills and combat awareness are far superior to Li Huahuan. Nolan continued to swing his sword at Li Huahuan. The stun time caused by the charge was not long, and he wanted to expand his advantage before Li Huahuan could react. That being said, as Nolan continued to swing his sword, he was surprised to find that his health bar was slowly decreasing. Every time you swing the sword, your health will decrease accordingly. Although it is not much, it is real damage. Retaliation. Nolan instantly thought of a game attribute. Apprentice level Blood Knights have the ability to counter damage? Isn't this unreasonable? Nolan's expression turned ugly. The stun effect had ended. He had taken away 1/5 of Li Huahuan's blood, and he himself had also lost about 1/20 of his blood. 25% damage counterattack. This is too unreasonable? Doesn't it mean that even if Li Huahuan stood still and let him hit him, he would still lose 1/4 of his health? After recovering from the dizziness, Li Huahuan's face was filled with anger. You actually attacked me by surprise. Valkyrie, I just took the initiative, Nolan said lightly. There was no change on the surface, but he had become extremely cautious in his heart. Li Huahuan snorted coldly. Without saying anything, he raised his sword and started fighting with Nolan again. On one side was a professional player from a martial arts family, and on the other side was a famously fierce female anchor. The fight between the two was extremely intense, and the number of people in Li Huahuan's live broadcast room skyrocketed instantly. With the help of White Crow swordsmanship, Li Huahuan's attack speed and strength are higher than Nolan's. In addition, as his blood volume continues to decrease, the effect of the blood contract plays a greater role. The strange red light gradually became thicker and enveloped Li Huahuan's body, making her look particularly mighty and domineering. Nolan parried Li Huahuan's attack, and he could clearly felt that the power of the sword in Li Huahuan's hand was constantly increasing. The reduction in health also increases the attack power. Can I still counterattack? What's the point? Nolan was complaining crazily in his heart, and was even a little envious of Li Huahuan's professional skills. Compared with the conventional amplification skills like Knight's Oath, Blood Contract was obviously more extreme. However, even though he was at a disadvantage, Nolan still did not give up. His skills coming from a martial arts family allowed him to barely withstand Li Huahuan's attack. In terms of health, he still has the advantage, and he is waiting for the cooldown of the charge. Although Li Huahuan's attack strength was becoming more and more terrifying, that was achieved at the expense of her blood volume. Li Huahuan did not dodge Nolan's attack at all, as if she intended to consume her blood volume in exchange for powerful strength to directly crush Nolan. This is in line with the Valkyrie's temperament, but it is too reckless. Just when Li Huahuan's health dropped to only 1/5, Nolan found the right opportunity, and the cooldown time of the charge was over. 1/5 of his health was enough for him to kill Li Huahuan during the stun time of the charge, but Li Huahuan on the opposite side seemed to have anticipated Nolan's plan. He swung the sword in his hand across the air, and a bright red sword energy wrapped around the sword, and then it was directly fired out. Blood Knight skill, Bloodthirsty Slash. The speed was so fast that Nolan couldn't dodge at all. Nolan had no intention of dodging. As long as this sword energy couldn't kill him, he could charge forward to stun Li Huahuan and then win the duel. The blood-colored sword energy hit Nolan, and under the powerful attack of the blood contract, Nolan's blood volume dropped significantly in an instant, leaving only the last tenth. But he did not die. Nolan breathed a sigh of relief. He still had 1/10 of a chance left, so even if Li Huahuan was injured in return, he would not die. But he did not notice that when the blood-colored sword energy hit him, several streaks of blood overflowed from his body and merged into Li Huahuan's body. This time, Nolan rushed to Li Huahuan and knocked Li Huahuan into a dizzy state. Just when he was about to attack Li Huahuan, he suddenly found that Li Huahuan's blood volume had increased to 1/3. Nolan widened his eyes and checked again and again before he was sure that he was not mistaken. Come and hit me? Li Huahuan said with a proud smile. Although she was dazed, she was still able to speak. Your skill also includes blood-sucking? Nolan asked in disbelief. Is there a problem? I am a believer in blood. Isn't it normal to suck blood? Li Huahuan answered as a matter of course. Nolan opened his mouth, but had nothing to say. He raised his sword and looked at the health bar above Li Huahuan's head. He was silent for a long time and simply gave up. I give up. As Nolan admitted defeat, the surrounding players became excited one by one. They watched the whole game from beginning to end and confirmed one thing: no skills, just numbers. There is no need to mention Nolan's fighting skills. Although Li Huanhuan is called the Valkyrie, that is more because of Li Huanhuan's fierce personality. In terms of fighting skills, how can a female anchor like Li Huanhuan compare with those professional players? Despite being at a disadvantage in all aspects of skills and being ambushed by Nolan, Li Huanhuan still won. What does this mean? There is no need to explain how powerful the Blood Knight is. Everyone sees this. This is the professional Blood Knight of our blood cult. Li Huanhuan recovered from his dizzy state and spoke loudly to the players around him. Got it, Valkyrie, stop talking and start the selection. My sword is thirsty for blood. This is the profession tailor-made for me. How about showing off the blood hunter again? Isn't Dahei a blood hunter? Dahei? He's a rookie who only cares about the plot. Are you going to let him fight Nolan? The Valkyrie at least has some strength. The crowd was talking about it. Dahei, who was originally excited about Li Huanhuan's victory, started arguing with anger after listening to the discussions around him. Nolan was recalling the battle just now in his mind. If he knew that Li Huanhuan's sword energy could absorb blood, could he dodge and turn defeat into victory? After thinking for a while, Nolan smiled helplessly. After thinking about it, he still felt it was too difficult. Valkyrie, the swordsmanship you just used was learned from Special Executive Lear, right? Nolan walked up to Li Huanhuan and suddenly asked. Li Huanhuan was stunned for a moment, then looked at Nolan warily. What? If you know Special Executive Lear, could you introduce him to me? Nolan said a little embarrassedly. If he had the same swordsmanship as Li Huanhuan, perhaps the outcome of the fight just now would have been different. He not only lost in his profession, but also in swordsmanship. Moreover, the sword skills in law can also add attributes. If you want to cling to Lier's thigh, don't look for us. Dahei, who was standing nearby, heard this and shook his head and interrupted. We were just expelled from the sect by Lier. Lier is the special executive officer of the Church of War. We have already joined the Blood sect and have no say in the matter. Nolan was stunned by Dahei's words. That's it. We can't talk anymore. Li Huanhuan also shrugged, confirming what Dahei said. Okay then. Nolan nodded helplessly. It seemed that he had to rely on himself to get close to him. That he didn't stay at the horse farm any longer and just turned around and left Dahei in the Pope's chamber. Lear sat on the balcony, and in the living room, Miria and Mealy sat together. Ever since Milia and Mealy's were found together last time, the two sisters have been hanging out together often. Only at night would Mealy's leave, and Lear would have the opportunity to get close to Milia. Lear always felt that the way Mealy's looked at him was a little strange. He shook his head, retracted his gaze, and looked back at the live broadcast room of the forum that he had just seen the fight between Li Huanhuan and Nolan. In terms of professional strength, the Blood Knight was indeed stronger than the War Knight. The Blood Knight is stronger than the War Knight in both resistance and damage. Even if the overall physique is increased, the damage will be very high as the blood volume decreases. It can resist in fight, which can be said to be extremely abnormal. However, the War Knight is not completely useless. As a widely spread legal profession, the advantage of the War Knight lies in its various powerful sword techniques. Unlike the rare profession of Blood Knight, there are many strong War Knights, and many powerful swordsmanship are hidden in the hands of those strong men, while Blood Knight can only rely on professional skills and some common low-level swordsmanship. As long as they can acquire those powerful sword techniques and skills, the combat power of the War Knight can be qualitatively improved, just like Lear's Aslan royal swordsmanship. After looking at the forum for a while, Lear stood up and looked into the distance. In his perception, a red dot entered the Soros royal city. Lier had sensed it more than 10 days ago. It was someone coming from the direction of the royal city of Brayfield, someone who was marked with blood by Lier. A face appeared in Lear's mind. Archbishop Garth of Gold. It seemed that the people from the Golden Church had arrived, and a smile appeared on Lear's face. The city gate. After seeing the carriage engraved with the golden tree emblem, the guards quickly dispersed the crowd and went to meet it. Excuse me, are you a master from the Golden Church? The guard asked respectfully. Mori, who was guarding the carriage, immediately rode forward on horseback and said, "The Golden Church has obeyed the oracle and come to visit the War Pope." Mori was wearing a suit of armor inlaid with gold threads, and he looked very imposing. If Lear were here, he would definitely recognize him. He was the son of the High Priest of Uar, who had accompanied Ophelina to the royal city of Brayfield but ended up causing Ophelina to disappear. "My lords, please follow me. The guard at the gate nodded and led the convoy into the Soros royal city. In the carriage, Sylvia opened the curtains and looked at the scene outside. This was not her first time in Soros, but she was not familiar with Soros. The purpose of coming here this time was just to find Ophelia. If Ophelia was still alive. Sylvia's eyes were a little dim. This was the persistence of a mother. She would not give up before seeing Ophanina's body, even if the church had already conceded that Ophanina was dead. About half an hour later, the convoy arrived at the Pope's hall, and many players at the door showed curious expressions when they saw the carriage. When Sylvia stepped off the carriage, many players were stunned when the image of a mature and melancholy beauty appeared. What the hell? What kind of NPC is this? The Golden High Priest of the Golden Church? The former saint. An extraordinary NPC. Some players have already used reconnaissance skills. Although using reconnaissance skills will lead to being discovered, there are always players who are not afraid of death. The worst that can happen is that they commit suicide and resurrect. At the beginning of the game, they are not yet at many levels and have no burden. Sylvia also felt the spying and looked to the side. Seeing that the situation was not good, the player using the reconnaissance technique committed suicide on the spot. Sylvia was stunned by this scene, and it took him a while to react. High Priest Sylvia. A hearty voice broke the eerie silence. I in the Pope's chamber. Rafar came out with a smile on his face. Archon Rafar. Sylvia came back to his senses. What happened? Looking at the strange-looking crowd, Rafar asked puzzledly. Nothing, I just saw an alien commit suicide. Sylvia said calmly. When she saw the disappearing body of the person who committed suicide, she also understood the situation. She had heard a lot of news about strange people along the way, such as suicide in front of others, but she just saw it with her own eyes. Rafar was a little speechless. Well, this kind of situation does happen recently. I hope High Priest Sylvia will not mind. After all, those aliens were summoned by the gods. Sylvia nodded and said nothing more. The Pope has arranged a dinner, and the members of the Arcane Council have arrived. High Priest, please follow me. Rafar nodded, and then nodded to the guard beside him. The guard led the Golden Church's carriage to the parking place, and Sylvia and others followed behind Rafar. Not many people from the Golden Church arrived at Soros Royal City, including Sylvia, Golden Bishop Gas, Mori, and 3 mid-level guards, a total of 6 people following Rafar all the way into the Pope's hall. Rafar found a war believer and asked him to lead Sylvia and others to the guest rooms. The banquet would be in the evening and there was still some time. After doing all this, Rafar left first, as he also needed to make some preparations for the dinner led by the war knight. Everyone came to the guest room. Mori stood in the team. It was his first time to come to the war church. He couldn't help but compare the war church with the Golden Church in his mind. He looked around and suddenly saw 2 girls in wizard robes in the garden. Mori's eyes lit up immediately. Both girls were stunning in appearance. The blonde girl looked familiar to him, but he couldn't remember who she was. As for the purple-haired girl, she was stunningly beautiful. The appearance of the girl in front of him was enough to rank among the best women he had ever seen. He even felt that she was no worse than the girl he had always had a crush on, Ophanina, or even better. End of this chapter. Chapter 194, Lear's identity and the opening of the banquet. Tivani, you also lived in Brayfield before, and it seems that you have a good relationship with Lear. Can you tell me about it? Maya stood in front of the flower bed. It was winter, but there were still flowers blooming in the flower bed. This is the snow orchid that is only available in Soros. Hearing Maya's question, Tivani's expression changed slightly. Thinking of the scene in Brayfield, she became irritated. I'm sorry, princess. In the past, Lear almost put all his energy into magic. My relationship with Lear was pretty good, but then Lear suddenly changed. I don't know why, but from that time on, Lear became a dual law professional. Tivani didn't want to say too much. She just briefly talked about Lear's transformation, and didn't even mention how much Lear loved her in the past. It has no meaning anymore. A sudden change? Maya was stunned. Ladies. A voice suddenly sounded as the 2 women were talking. The war believers led a group of strangers and walked over. Maya didn't recognize any of them, but when she saw the golden tree emblem on the cassock of the visitor, she raised her eyebrows. Who are these people? Maya asked softly. My beautiful lady, my name is Mori, and I am the royal guard knight of the Golden Church. Mori immediately stepped forward and introduced himself. The people around all had strange expressions when they saw this. This frivolous tone was really too rude. Moreover, Mori was only an accompanying guard. Even though his father was a golden high priest, Sylvia was the one with the highest status here, and Mori should not be the one to step forward and say hello anyway. Sensing that the atmosphere was getting a little weird, Mori turned around and saw Sylvia's unfriendly gaze. He was stunned for a moment, then reacted with a stiff expression. High priest, back off and don't embarrass yourself. Sylvia snorted coldly. After reprimanding Mori, Sylvia turned around and looked at Maya on the other side. I am Sylvia Adrian, the high priest of the Golden Church. Sylvia Adrian? Hearing this name, Maya was somewhat impressed. Are you the former Golden Saint? Yes, but that was a long time ago. Sylvia nodded. I'm Maya Kalia, a member of the Arcane Parliament. Maya nodded and introduced herself. I'm Tivani. Long time no see, Your Excellency the High Priest. Tivani bowed slightly. I remember you. You are Erwin's daughter. Does that mean Erwin is here too? Sylvia asked. Yes, father is here too. Tivani nodded. Sylvia also nodded, but she didn't seem to want to say anything more about Erwin. She looked at Maya. I just heard you mention Lear? Is it Lear Stewart? Lear Stewart. As soon as this name appeared, many people's expressions changed, especially Mori. He did not have Sylvia's extraordinary level of strength, so he did not hear the conversation between Maya and Tivani just now. After hearing the name Lear, his expression became a little gloomy. When he was in the royal city of Brayfield, he had a strong hostility towards Lear. A man who was better than him in every way. Ophelia also favors Lear. Yes, does High Priest Sylvia know him? Maya asked curiously. Of course I know him. Sylvia nodded. His father helped the church a lot in the past, and Albert also helped to eliminate the true spirits of the corrupt sect. Is that so? Maya seemed to be thinking about something. She had also heard about the corrupt spirit. After all, it was a god of heretical laws who came to the world. This was a big deal. There was also another heretical sect among them, the Blood sect. There was a piece of news that even Lear himself did not know. The name of the Blood sect had already spread among the top leaders of the three Orthodox sections. With the help of the Golden Church, they sacrificed the corrupt spirits to the gods they believed in. It was truly incredible. High Priest Sylvia, Special Executive Lear is in the church now. If you want to see him, I can take you there, Maya said. Sylvia mentioned Lear, and it seemed that she had a good relationship with Lear. Maya didn't mind taking Sylvia to see Lear, and she could also meet Lear by the way. After losing to Lear last time, she had some strange feelings towards Lear. It was hard to explain, and she wanted to ask Lear why he mastered magic so quickly, but she was embarrassed to do so. Special Executive Officer? Sylvia was visibly stunned when she heard the word. Yes, now Lear is the Special Executive of the Church of War. Maya nodded. What kind of position is this? Sylvia asked confusedly. He knew that Lear had regained the gift of war, but he had never heard of Lear joining the Church of War. Maya looked at the war believer beside her. She only knew Lear's position but didn't know what he did. Being watched by everyone, the war believer was a little nervous, but he remained calm and said, Special Executive Officer Lear is responsible for supervising the entire church. Even His Holiness the Pope is subject to supervision. As soon as these words were spoken, the scene fell into silence. Everyone was shocked. Even Maya and Tivani did not expect this. They knew that Lear had a high status in the church, but they did not expect that he could even supervise the Pope. What, are you kidding? The silence lasted for a long time, and a sharp voice broke the peace. Mori pointed at the war cultists and said with a distorted expression, Lear is just a mid-level professional, and he is supervising the entire war church? Don't you have anyone in your war church? His words expressed the thoughts of Sylvia and other members of the Golden Church. Although it was rude, it was also their doubt. Mid-level professional? Maya looked at Mori strangely. What are you talking about? Special Executive Officer Lear is an extraordinary war knight. This is impossible. Mori didn't believe it at all.
When Lear was in the royal city of Briefiel, he was only at the intermediate level. How long had it been since he was promoted to the extraordinary level? But Special Executive Officer Lear is truly an extraordinary professional. Maya curled her lips. Maury looked at Maya's confident expression and wanted to refute, but was stopped by Sylvia. Okay, no need to say more, you will know when we meet. And even if it is true, it is not impossible. People who are blessed by the gods are always special. Maury gritted his teeth. Hearing that Lear had become so powerful was even more painful than losing his father. Sylvia glanced at Maury. Maury was almost like his father, equally petty. It would be a tragedy if such a man became the new high priest of the church. However, the church's affairs were not something she could control. Sylvia shook her head and looked at the war believers beside her. Take us to where we live. She turned her head and looked at Maya, smiling slightly. Senator Maya, see you later. Maya nodded without saying anything more. After Sylvia and the others left, Maya looked at Divine. Divine, why are they so surprised when I say that Lear is a super professional? Hearing Maya's question, Divine said helplessly, of course they would be surprised, because not long ago when I was still in the kingdom of Briefiel, Lear was only a mid-level professional. At that time, I was also shocked when I heard that Lear was promoted to extraordinary. That means that in just a few months, Lear was promoted from the intermediate level to the extraordinary level? Maya widened her eyes. Yes, Your Highness. Divine nodded. Maya was silent for a long time before she said with some resentment, did he really not cheat? Night gradually fell. The side hall of the Pope's Hall is where banquets are held. At this time, a large number of carriages are parked at the door. The war bishops of all important cities in the Kingdom of Nox have been summoned here. Duval will announce the cooperation with the Golden Church and the Arcane Council here, as well as Lear's identity. Only some high-ranking officials in the Vatican knew about Lear's identity as Special Executive Officer. I in the banquet hall, at the innermost part is a statue of the goddess of war, and the major war bishops have already entered. Alvin also brought Maya and Divine to the scene. The three of them changed into formal attire. After taking off her wizard robe and putting on a dress, Maya looked even more beautiful. The lavender evening dress made her look like a night elf. Of course, Divine was also very beautiful, but she was a little inferior to Maya. Sylvia and other people from the Golden Church also came. Sylvia, who changed into a white dress, also attracted the attention of many men. Compared with Maya's youthful and beautiful appearance, the more mature Sylvia was obviously more in line with the wishes of the war bishops present. Even Erwin took a look at her inadvertently. Humph. A light snort was heard, and Tuwenyi looked at her father with some displeasure. Tuwenyi, I just saw an acquaintance. You know, your father is not a man who is greedy for beauty. Alvin explained helplessly. Maya watched from the sidelines and laughed secretly, then she coughed lightly. If Archmage Erwin likes it, I can ask my mother to go to the Golden Church and talk to him. I heard that Archpriest Sylvia's husband died a few years ago, and she is single now. Your Highness. Erwin felt even more helpless after hearing Maya's teasing. At this time, Maury, who was standing at the position of the Golden Church, walked over and his eyes lit up when he saw Maya and Divine. Ladies, your beauty would outshine even the stars in the sky. Maury praised what he thought was an invincible compliment, but this lame approach made Maya and the other two girls frown. Neither of them paid any attention to Maury, and Maury, holding the wineglass, stood there awkwardly. Sir Maury, the banquet is about to begin. Isn't it your duty to guard High Priest Sylvia? Do you want to lose the High Priest? Erwin on the side said lightly, with a hint of sarcasm in his words. When in the royal city of Briefiel, Maury failed to protect Saint Ophinia, which led to Ophinia being kidnapped by the Blood Apostle, and her whereabouts are still unknown. After hearing what Alvin said, Maury's face became even uglier, but he didn't dare to refute. He could only return to his position in the Golden Church in disappointment. At 8 o'clock in the evening, it was time for the banquet to officially begin. Duval was wearing a papal robe and holding Greta's arm. Lear and Milia stood beside him. Behind Lear were the three war archons, and Avian. Lear was wearing a black long-buttoned dress, while Milia was wearing a blue evening gown. Her long silver hair looked particularly outstanding and beautiful under the light. The handsome man and the beautiful woman attracted everyone's attention as soon as they appeared. Not only was I amazed at their appearance, but I was also shocked by their positions, standing next to the Pope, standing in front of the three war archons. What kind of status does it take to be in such a position?
And a young man at that. Everyone in the Golden Church was also shocked by Lear's appearance. Maury's eyes almost popped out as he watched the scene. When he saw the girl next to Lear, he became even more obsessed. Sylvia's gaze also changed. She felt that the aura on Lear was indeed of an extraordinary level. As for the girl beside Lear, the beautiful, otherworldly face seemed familiar to her. After thinking for a moment, Sylvia's eyes widened as she remembered Milia Brayfield. Lear's fiancée, the princess of the kingdom of Brayfield. But wasn't Milia missing? It seemed that she was kidnapped by the blood apostle just like her daughter. But why was she here now? Feeling the gazes from all around, Lear felt a little helpless. He didn't really want to bring Milia out. He knew how attractive Milia's appearance was, and she had dressed up carefully. The most important thing is that Sylvia is present. Milia is still missing in Brayfield. Queen Philia is a heretic. Sylvia will inevitably link Milia and Queen Philia together. If the law of chinching is exposed, it will not end well. Although Lear is not afraid of the Golden Church now, it is still troublesome. What's wrong? Sensing Lear's emotions, Milia asked with a smile, I am very jealous. It is such a shame that my beautiful wife's beauty is seen by these mortals. Lear shrugged, humph. Slippery tongue. Milia snorted, but still with a smile on her face. She looked at Sylvia below. Are you worried that my identity will be exposed? Lear also glanced at Sylvia and did not answer Milia's question, which was considered as his consent. I am no longer the same Milia, and I don't need to hide like before. Milia turned her gaze to Lear. I know, so I won't hide you anymore. You are my goddess, and I will always stand with you. Lear chuckled and reached out to stroke Milia's hair. The two of them already knew each other well, so there was no need to say much. The intimate behavior of the two made everyone present feel like they had eaten a mouthful of dog food. Tivani's eyes dimmed a little, and Maya also felt an inexplicable irritation in her heart. End of this chapter. Chapter 195, Milia's identity revealed and the choice of the War Pope. Thank you all for coming to this banquet. Duval glanced at everyone present. He was the War Pope, but he never put on airs and enjoyed an excellent reputation in the church. The main reason for inviting you all here this time is to announce our cooperation with the Arcane Council and the Golden Church, as well as the recent large number of aliens that have appeared, and to introduce a person. Duval stated the theme of the banquet. The war bishops present were all surprised by Duval's words. Although the three major Orthodox sects were not in a hostile relationship, they were also in a competitive relationship. For example, the War Church that was once the faith of the Kingdom of Brayfield has now been replaced by the Golden Church and the Arcane Council. This is definitely a fight for faith, and now they want to cooperate. For a moment, there were bursts of discussions in the banquet hall. Quiet. Duval said loudly. This is the oracle of the goddess, and the decision was made by the three goddesses themselves. As soon as these words were spoken, the war bishops in the audience fell silent. Matters concerning gods were not something they could interfere with at will. Seeing that everyone had quieted down, Duval continued, regarding this cooperation, our three major sects will introduce the forces of the other two major sects to their respective faith areas. But this does not mean that we will spread our faith in other people's territories. The branches established in other countries will only be open to aliens, helping them to change jobs and issuing tasks to improve their affinity with the law. You should have heard of those aliens. They are the ones chosen by the gods to descend. They are immortal. Duval said lightly that up to now, no one knew the origin of the aliens. Although there were oracles saying that they were chosen by the gods, why did the gods choose the aliens to descend, especially now that the war trial is about to take place? The entire war church will be activated because of the trial, and those horrible things sealed in the old dream will not be so easy to suppress now that uncontrollable aliens have appeared. He also needs to allocate some of his strength to establish branches of the war church in other areas. Duval is really having a headache. By then, the Arcane Council and the Golden Church will establish branches in major cities in the kingdom, and our war church will also send war bishops to other countries to establish branches. This will require your cooperation. Duval continued. The war bishops present looked at each other, but said nothing. Since it was the oracle of the gods, they should obey it. Seeing that there were no objections, Duval nodded, then looked at Elvin and Sylvia on the side. These two are members of the Arcane Council and the High Priest of the Golden Church respectively. If you are interested, you can take the initiative to ask the two excellencies for permission to set up branches in other countries at the banquet later, and then report to Rafar. I will issue the transfer orders in a unified manner. Duval did not want to interfere in the establishment of branches, so he chose to give the power of selection to many war bishops. Rafar on the side helplessly. Such troubles were always thrown to him. As the Pope, Duval liked to be a hands-off boss. It was really hateful, as if not feeling Rafar's resentful gaze, Duval finally looked at Lear. Well, there's one last thing. Duval slightly turned his body and placed Lear in the center. This is Lear Stewart, a war knight of extraordinary level, and a special executive appointed by the goddess herself. Mr. Lear will oversee all affairs of the church from now on. Hearing Duval's words, Lear walked forward with a smile on his face. Although he didn't really want to do this job, he still had to put in the effort. Looking at the young man on the stage, the war bishops below have not yet reacted. Special executor? Overseeing the church? What kind of position is this? Your Holiness, who is this special executive? Someone asked cautiously. Supervising the church and punishing those who commit crimes in the name of the church. Duval explained lightly. Well, the power of special executive Lear overrides the entire church, including me, the Pope, under his supervision. As soon as these words were spoken, the entire banquet hall fell silent instantly. Duval's explanation was very clear. Lear, the special executive, was a sort of Damocles hanging over the heads of all the members of the war church, constantly reminding everyone not to do evil. Such power is too heavy. Looking at the people who had quieted down, Lear had a blank expression on his face. He naturally knew what would happen once his duties were exposed. Naturally, he would be despised by everyone. Just like the Genui in history, there is no official who does not hate them, and his power is even greater than that of the Genui. After all, even Pope Duval is under his supervision. When the gods cannot descend to the mortal world, he is above everything. That being said, as long as these war bishops do not break the law, his power cannot be exerted, and Lear does not intend to exercise power arbitrarily, nor does he plan to form a department. Thankless. As long as the bishops do not commit crimes, I will not exercise my power easily. Lear said calmly, breaking the silence. I have no intention of establishing power. I am the only special executive officer of the church, and there will be no one else. Moreover, I completely trust you all. After all, we are all believers in war, so we must not be bad people, right? Lear's voice echoed in the hall. After a brief silence, the solemn atmosphere began to ease. The originally nervous war bishops echoed one by one, the executor is right. We believers of war can never be evil people who do evil things. That's right. Various voices rang out one after another, including praises and compliments, and all the voices were consistent. Although no one knew why a special executive of the supervisory church suddenly appeared, he was appointed by the goddess herself and was an extraordinary war knight. No one wanted to offend him. Duval looked at Lear and felt relieved. He was indeed afraid that Lear would act rashly and make too many enemies, which would be embarrassing for him as the Pope. Well, that's all I want to say. Please enjoy the banquet. If you want to set up a branch, you can go to the two gentlemen to find out more and then report to Rafar after the banquet. Duval finally said with a smile and waved his hand. The enjoyment after the banquet officially began. Many war bishops came directly to Lear. Although Lear said that he would not exercise power arbitrarily, who would not want to cling to the thigh of a new senior official, out of politeness, Lear simply responded. After a while, the crowd dispersed a lot. Duval walked up to Lear and said with a smile, "How do you feel?" "It's very troublesome." Lear answered directly. Duval was stunned for a moment, then laughed and said, "It seems that you and I are the same kind of people. We believers of war only need to fight. It is too troublesome to manage those troubles." Duval shook his head. He became the Pope because of his strength, not his management ability. When it comes to management ability, Rafar is much stronger. So many affairs of the church are handled by Rafar. The two chatted casually. Duval admired Lear very much. He was valued by the goddess, had great strength, and was a dual law professional. He would be very happy if such a person could become his son-in-law, but, glancing at the otherworldly and beautiful Milia beside Lear, Duval sighed. Greta was outshine in every aspect, both in appearance and temperament. Even if its strength, Dybul couldn't feel the magical fluctuations from Milia, but his intuition told him that the girl in front of him was not simple. As if she felt the gaze on her, Milia raised her head and smiled at Dybul. That star-like smile stunned Duval for a moment, and then he looked away, as if looking at him any longer would be a blasphemy. "Are you Milia Brayfield?" A cold voice suddenly came from not far away. "Yes, I'm Milia Brayfield." Seeing the person coming, Milia nodded. Sylvia walked forward, looked at Milia with scrutiny, and said, "I remember you were captured by the Blood Apostle in the royal city of Brayful. Why are you here?" There was a hint of questioning in Sylvia's tone, as if he were interrogating a prisoner. The expression on Lierre's face gradually became cold, and Duval also frowned. "This doesn't seem to have anything to do with Your Excellency the High Priest, right?" Milia smiled nonchalantly. After hearing Milia's answer, Sylvia realized that she came to the war church as a guest. Milia was Lierre's fiancée, and her attitude was a bit rude. Taking a deep breath, Sylvia said apologetically, "I'm sorry, but my daughter was also captured by the Blood Apostle. I wonder if you know the whereabouts of my daughter since you are here." Sylvia mentioned Ophanina, and Milia glanced at Lierre inconspicuously. Of course she knew where Ophanina was. After being thrown into the old dream by Lierre, she had never seen her again. It was likely that she was hidden away in a wealthy mansion. Milia shrugged her nose and replied calmly, "Sorry, I don't know who the daughter you were talking about is." "You really don't know, Princess Milia?" "I remember that your mother was a heretic and was rescued by the Blood Apostle." "You should." Sylvia became a little agitated. Thinking of many things, she always felt that there was something wrong with the girl in front of her. "I said I don't know, and please don't describe my mother as a heretic." Milia's face turned cold, and her eyes turned dangerous when she looked at Sylvia. Sylvia was stunned by Milia's sudden change, but her expression became more excited. "You know what, right? I've said it before, I don't know. High Priest, please go back." Milia shook her head and didn't want to say anything more, but Sylvia didn't intend to end it there, and a detection spell hit Milia. The dark blue light of the morning star law bloomed from Milia's body, carrying with it a cool and mysterious meaning. "This power is the same as your heretic mother. It is the power of heretical law. You must know the whereabouts of Ophelia." Seeing the faint blue light, Sylvia seemed to have gone crazy. Dybul on the side was also stunned. He also felt the power from Milia, which was mysterious and powerful, like the silent deep space. This is the power of law that does not belong to the three major sections. The wife of the church's special executive is actually a believer in heretical laws. He turned his head sharply and looked at Lierre, only to see that Lierre's face was calm and not shaken at all. Of the commotion here attracted the attention of everyone present. Maya and Iwian, who had been paying attention to Lierre's situation, saw the faint light emanating from Milia. Beautiful and mysterious, it adds a cool charm to Milia, who already has an outstanding temperament. "Damned heretics, is Ophinia in your hands?" Sylvia asked angrily. "Follower of gold, don't you know that it is very impolite to investigate others at will?" Milia did not answer Sylvia's words, but spoke calmly, as if she did not take the High Priest seriously at all. Milia really doesn't need to take the High Priest seriously. She is the goddess of the morning star. After awakening, she absorbs the light of the morning star every day. Her strength is recovering rapidly. If it were not for the restrictions of the rules, she would probably have reached the level of a saint now. Even Lierre didn't know that Milia was now at the level of a semi-saint, the same level as the former blasphemous true spirit. No need for courtesy to heretics. "Tell me the whereabouts of Ophinia, otherwise you will be judged by gold," Sylvia said angrily. Having already taken out his weapon, the war bishops and people from the other two major sects around him finally noticed the situation. Mori was the first to rush over and shouted, "Heretic! Pope of War! Heretic believers have appeared in the war church. Shouldn't you explain it?" Sylvia looked at Dybul, who was standing aside. Upon hearing this, Dybul looked at Sylvia and then at Lierre, his expression looking a little unhappy. "Explanation? What explanation does Archpriest Sylvia need?" Lierre came up at this time and said lightly, "This is the war church, not the golden church." "Watch your words? Are you giving orders to His Holiness the Pope?" Lierre's words made Sylvia pause. She almost forgot where she was. She had always been in the area controlled by the Golden Church. Once a heretic appeared, everyone would arrest him, but now this was the war church. Although the war church also dislikes heretics, it will not take the initiative to arrest heretics. It will only clean up those heretics who are harmful to the church. This is completely different from the Golden Church. It is better to say that the trial of heretics is just the name of the Golden Church itself. Even the attitude of the Arcane Council towards heretics is not so extreme. I'm sorry for my words and actions, Your Holiness. Sylvia took a deep breath and apologized, but his eyes were still fixed on Milia. I shouldn't be rude to Your Holiness, but she is a heretic. I hope Your Holiness will not interfere with the Golden Church's trial of heretics. Dival's expression eased slightly. Sylvia's attitude just now did make him angry, but now he was a little troubled by Sylvia's request. If Milia was an ordinary heretic, he could ignore it, but Milia was Lear's wife. After thinking for a moment, Dival looked at Lear with a calm expression and made a decision. Archpriest Sylvia, Milia is the wife of Lear's special executive officer. Even if she is a believer in heresy laws, she cannot be judged by the Golden Church. Everyone was shocked when these words were spoken, and even Lear looked at Duval in surprise. Is Duval going to offend the Golden Church for supporting him? In the previous life, the Arcane Council supported Milia despite the pressure from the Golden Church. Unexpectedly, it has now become a church of war. End of this chapter. Chapter 196. The domineering goddess of Qinsheng. Looking at the ugly expression of High Priest Sylvia, Duval remained calm. It was the Golden Church that first shouted the slogan of judging heretics. At that time, the three major sects were still in the stage of working together, so to give face to the Golden Church, the War Church and the Arcane Council also shouted the slogan of judging heretics. After all, this is also beneficial and conducive to the spread of one's own beliefs. But now, Miria is Lear's wife, and Lear is the one chosen by the goddess of war. Milia was a believer in heretical laws, and the goddess of war could not have been unaware of this. But even so, she still granted Lear an extraordinary status. It's self-evident what this represents. Duval looked at Milia, who exuded an awe-inspiring aura. He could feel that the girl in front of him was very strong, stronger than anyone imagined. Your Holiness, do you really want to go against the Golden Church? Sylvia gritted her teeth. If the War Pope really wanted to protect Milia, she would have no choice but to give up. There was no way he could compete with the entire War Church alone. This is the Church of War, High Priest Sylvia. Duval said lightly. Although he did not directly confront Sylvia, his tone was firm. The War Church does not need to intervene in this matter. Just as Sylvia was struggling internally, Milia spoke up. She took out the Morning Star Scepter, and the dark blue starlight was released unreservedly. I hate people who offend me. Milia said lightly. You want to judge me? Then come and try. Milia's voice was not loud, but it was clearly heard by everyone present. This is a naked provocation, treating the Golden Sea and Sylvia as nothing. Hearing Milia's words, Duval was stunned. He took the initiative to protect Milia from disaster, but Milia didn't seem to appreciate it. For a moment, the corners of his mouth twitched slightly. Don't I, the War Pope, have any respect? Lear. Duval looked at Lear beside him, but saw a smile on Lear's face. Your Holiness, since Milia said not to intervene, let her be. Lear said softly. Maybe Milia wanted to show her strength, to show that she was not just a vase, she was the goddess of the Morning Star, and anyone who disrespected the gods would be judged. Duval opened his mouth and was speechless about the couple, but since Lear said so, he could only obey. Lear smiled at Duval, walked to Milia, leaned over and whispered in Milia's ear, my princess, if possible, please spare Sylvia's life. Milia glanced at Lear. She did intend to kill Sylvia. To her, it was like killing an ant. She is Ophelia's mother. Ophelia has now joined the blood cult, so, Lear said somewhat embarrassedly. Not long ago, he promised Ophelia that he would not kill Sylvia. If Sylvia was killed by Milia, he would be breaking his promise. Listening to Lear's explanation, Milia stared at Lear for a long time, and finally snorted, I cannot kill her, but she must be severely punished. Of course, this is the punishment she deserves. Lear breathed a sigh of relief, but at the same time felt a little guilty. I want compensation. Milia looked at Lear and said again, I will meet all your requirements. Lear nodded with a wry smile. He was indeed in the wrong. After giving Milia a gentle kiss on the cheek, Lear turned around and returned to Duval. What did you say to her? Duval had a strange expression on his face. In such a solemn atmosphere, Lear actually kissed Milia. This really showed that he did not treat everyone as outsiders. I asked Milia to show mercy. Lier's expression returned to calm, and he turned his head to look at Duval. You don't want the high priest of the Golden Church to die in the war church, do you? Duval finally reacted. He had never thought that Milia would kill Sylvia. The girl in front of him was not a docile sheep, but a proud lion. Let's go outside. Milia said lightly to Sylvia, then walked out of the banquet hall with the scepter in her hand. Looking at Milia's leaving back, Sylvia gritted his teeth, took out his scepter and followed. A group of war bishops followed closely behind, and Lier and Duval also walked out the door. Outside the hall, in the square, Milia stood on the left. The stars in the sky were shining brightly, and countless starlight seemed to be attracted and gathered around Milia. Sylvia was not afraid at all when she saw this. She had her own pride. As a former saint, she had cleared countless heretics for the church. Apart from the Pope, she was the strongest person in the church. She would never lose to a little girl. Both of them stood in the square. Milia placed the Morning Star scepter on the ground. The terrifying Morning Star magic power burst out instantly. A dark blue beam of light shot up into the sky. The breath of magic that emanated from it made the robes of everyone present flutter. Even the players far away outside the Pope's hall saw the column of light rising into the sky and became excited. What is that? What happened in the Pope's chamber? The players were talking among themselves and gathering towards the Pope's hall. Inside the Pope's hall, the pillar of light that shot up into the sky gradually dissipated, and a dark blue barrier enveloped the entire square, like a protective shield. Is this a magic shield? Outside the shield, Alvin reached out and touched the shield with an incredible expression on his face. Father, what is this? Tivani was shocked by the scene. This is a protective shield made of magic power by Miss Milia. It can prevent the magic power of battle from causing damage to the surrounding environment, but it is ineffective against physical damage. Erwin took a deep breath and moved his right hand back and forth in the protective shield. After hearing what Erwin said, everyone around understood. Duval also looked at Milia not far away in surprise. Was this to prevent an extraordinary level battle from destroying the Pope's hall? Milia didn't know what was going on outside. She looked at Sylvia, a professional of the extraordinary level, and was completely insignificant. Are you looking down on me? Sylvia took a deep breath. Using such a huge amount of magic power to build a magic shield to protect the environment before the fight even started was a complete humiliation to her. Let's start. Milia did not answer Sylvia's question, but just quietly raised the Morningstar scepter. The dark blue light gathered around him, and the dense starlight rushed towards Sylvia like a cunning venomous snake. This scene was very familiar, and Maya and others outside the protective shield were stunned for a moment, and subconsciously looked at Lier. Not long ago, Lier used such intensive arcane shocks to suppress Maya and her team in a 1-on-4 fight and won the victory. Now Milia used the same method to suppress Sylvia. However, what Milia used was not arcane shock, but some other power. Looking at Milia with the stars shining all around her, Maya suddenly discovered that the power Milia used seemed to be somewhat similar to the arcane law. The battle became one-sided. Sylvia could only keep using magic to protect herself. The purifying flame of the golden law was burning and could burn out the starlight, but that starlight seemed endless. Each blow just broke through her magical defense and hit her body. The damage was not high, but it was extremely insulting. Archpriest Sylvia. The people from the Golden Church and the crowd finally reacted and were about to go up to help, but the next moment a dark purple rapier appeared in front of everyone. Lier stood at the front, the knight rose in his hand flashing with gorgeous light. This is a battle between Milia and Sylvia, no one is allowed to interfere. Violent magic power was released on Lier. The ground was covered with cold frost, and lavender arcane magic power condensed in the air, as if it would attack the people of the Golden Sea in the next second. Lier. Feeling the terrifying magic power, Mori trembled all over. Just watch carefully. What will happen even if you go up? Lier didn't even look back at them. He just kept looking at Milia floating in the air. Goddess of Morningstar, Milia is not an ordinary professional, nor is she an ordinary girl. She is a goddess. Milia has always maintained the image of a little wife, but she is a god, someone who once stood at the pinnacle of an era. She can be a docile wife for Lier, but at heart, she is a lonely goddess. Damned heretic. Sylvia roared, and all the magic power in her body burst out. She, who had been suppressed, went completely crazy. The golden flame burned, the golden law shone, and gradually condensed in the air into a dazzling golden holy spear. The extraordinary skill of the one who prays, holy word, destruction. It causes unavoidable holy damage to the target, which has the same characteristics as the death thorn piercing that comes with Lier's bloody rose. However, this is an attack that Sylvia has used up all her strength. She even gave up defense and let the starlight hit her. It also has the golden fury of a high-level judge. The power of this attack has reached an extraordinary extreme. Outside the protective shield, Dibble and other high-ranking members of the Church of War also looked solemn when they saw the scene. Dibble looked at Lear and said worriedly, "Lear, Ms. Millia is really, don't worry." Lear also looked at the holy spear in the air. This attack was indeed very powerful, but it was nothing to Millia. Die in the center of the square. Millia stopped the intensive attack of the starlight, and the scepter in her hand emitted a dazzling light. A starlight sword emitting terrifying power appeared in Millia's hand. The hilt of the sword is made of the morning star scepter, and the blade is made of faint blue starlight, making it look particularly mysterious and beautiful. The greatsword and the holy spear, two powerful weapons, came out at the same time, and Dibble felt a little numb. Forget about the holy lance, after all, it wasn't the first time he had seen it, but this starlight greatsword, he had a feeling in his heart that if this big sword was aimed at him, he would probably die in the next moment. There was absolutely no ability to resist, and the sword seemed to be pointing directly at the soul. Special Executive Lear, are you sure that Ms. Millia will not kill Sylvia? Dibble asked Lear with a trembling voice. Is that right? Lear smiled awkwardly. Since Millia had promised him, he believed that Millia would not break her promise. However, even so, Millia's current behavior could be described as quite overbearing. The moment she saw the starry sword, Sylvia fell into despair. She was a transcendent professional and could feel the threat of death from the sword. The starlight sword may not be as powerful as the holy spear, but hidden in its silence is absolute power. Sylvia gritted her teeth unwillingly. Now that things had come to this, she couldn't kneel down and beg for mercy. Even if she died, she would fight to the end. The holy spear stabbed at Millia, and Millia also wielded the starlight greatsword. As soon as the two imaginary weapons came into contact, the sacred and mighty holy spear was cut in half by the starlight greatsword. Under the erosion of the dark blue magic of the morning star, it instantly turned into light spots all over the sky. The starlight greatsword continued to slash towards Sylvia below. Just when everyone thought that the golden high priest Sylvia was about to die on the spot, the greatsword stopped. Someone asked me to spare your life. Millia's indifferent voice came from the night sky. Sylvia raised his head with difficulty, and the dazzling starlight sword was within reach as someone pleaded for her. Who? Many thoughts flashed through Sylvia's mind. Dibble, it doesn't seem like it. After all, Duval still has a terrified expression on his face. Could it be Lear? She thought of the whispers between Lear and Miria before the battle began, but if it was Lear, why, Sylvia couldn't figure it out. I know you are hostile to me because of your daughter. I can tell you clearly that your daughter is still alive, but not with me, but with the Apostle of Blood. Millia continued. I am the controller of the laws of Qinsheng. It has nothing to do with blood. I will let you go this time. If you dare to offend me again, I will not show mercy. Millia added, with a hint of murderous intent in her words. She had promised Lear that she would spare Sylvia's life, but only this time. As a goddess, she also had her own temper and would not allow someone who repeatedly offended her to live in the world. Sylvia was silent, looking at the girl in the air with a hint of excitement in her eyes. At least she knew her daughter was still alive. Me? Your Majesty Qinsheng, thank you for telling me this. Can you also tell me how Afanina is doing now? Sylvia lay on the ground with a very humble attitude. She already knew the gap between herself and Millia. She could feel that even the Golden Pope would not be a match for the girl in front of her. Now she only wanted to know about Afanina's situation. Afanina is still alive, but... Millia hesitated for a moment and said, but I'm afraid she can't go back to the Golden Church. The believers of blood will make Afanina a believer of blood. She has not been persecuted. She is alive and well. She just changed her beliefs. You will be able to see her soon. Millia continued, glancing at Lear while speaking. These are the futures she sees for Afanina. She cannot see Lear's future, but the people around Lear have no secrets for her. End of this chapter. Chapter 197. The dominant class, Millia, and the undead witch. The magic shield in the sky slowly dissipated, and at the same time, the starlight sword in Millia's hand also dissipated. Many war bishops couldn't help but tremble when they looked at the girl's delicate face. Who could have thought that a seemingly harmless girl could burst out with such powerful strength? Duval was a little excited at this time. He was glad for his decision. If he had chosen to stand on the side of the Golden Church at that time, then Lear and Milia would have become his enemies. 2 Extraordinary level professionals. Lear is a dual law professional. Until now, Dybel has not seen Lear display his full strength, but he has a deep understanding of Milia's strength. Dybel was not sure he could take the sword just now. This couple is worthy of the War Church to get closer to Maya. Erwin and others were also shocked by Milia's strength. She had such powerful strength but was unknown. Coupled with Lear, it seemed that more preparations would be needed when the speaker came to Soros Royal City for negotiations. Milia slowly came to Lear's side, and the Morningstar scepter turned into starlight and dissipated. She seemed to have become the wife of Lear, who had little presence. Ignoring the many gazes around her, Milia shifted her eyes to the bushes outside the square. Behind the bushes, several players were dancing with excitement. Wow, this is too awesome! Did you see that? The extraordinary high priest of the Golden Church was beaten without any chance to fight back. I didn't expect that. Not only is Lear a hero-level NPC, but his wife is also so awesome, a player said excitedly. That Golden High Priest is just a commander-level NPC, not even as good as Lear. The NPC named Milia is even stronger than Lear. The invincible and handsome man in the bush said disdainfully. Boss, you said Milia is stronger than Lear? Take a look at this. Wudi Zujinlang showed the information he had gathered to his subordinates, which contained Milia's character information. Name: Miria Brayful, Godman, Ruler, Level 100, Extraordinary, Profession, Favorability, Cold Danger Level, Extremely Deadly. After seeing Miria's character information, the players present were shocked. She was at level 100, and was labeled as a god and a master. Boss, I remember that the highest level limit in the current version seems to be level 100, right? And the Overlord seems to be a higher level boss class? One level higher than the hero class? A younger brother stuttered. And what does this Godman mean? Does it represent identity? No matter what these represent, one thing we can confirm is that Miria Brayfield is definitely the top NPC in the game. Didn't she appear in the trailer before? She represents another heretical law, and may even be related to the gods. Wudi Zwijnlang made a pretentious analysis. Whether Lear is a hero-level NPC or a dual-law profession may be related to this Milia. I even suspect that Lear is a gigolo and has reached his current level thanks to Milia. As he spoke, he felt that he had guessed the truth. The heretic laws in this game were not simple. Whether it was the Blood King or Milia, the three major Orthodox sects seemed too weak, so it turns out that choosing heretical laws is the right way, Wudi Zwijnlang was thinking, and just when he was considering how to get close to Milia, he found that his younger brothers all showed obscene expressions. He leaned over and looked over. In the center of the square, Sylvia had come back to her senses. Her dress had become tattered, revealing a lot of her body. She looked particularly seductive, and not only the players, but also some war bishops around them had their eyes shining. Noticing the gazes from all around, Sylvia frowned, lowered his head to take a look, and understood the situation, but she was clearly not angry. She just showed a look of contempt, and slowly took out a robe from the storage items. Just when she was about to cover her body, two huge magic circles on the ground suddenly lit up. You have been affected by the magic seal of the extraordinary magic circle, and your own magic power has entered a forbidden state. You are affected by the extraordinary magic array absolute soul fixation and enter a fixed state, unable to move. The duration is 10 minutes. Two system prompts suddenly popped up in the eyes of the players and Lear. Many players hiding in the bushes were stunned, staring at the two large magic circles that covered the entire banquet hall in the outer square, with their eyes wide open. For a moment, all the people enveloped in the magic circle were frozen in place, unable to move. This sudden change made the banquet hall silent, with only the magic circle on the ground flickering with light. This silence lasted for a long time before Maya reacted and said in shock, Master Erwin, is this the Parliament's large magic circle? Yes, Your Highness, it's a large-scale extraordinary magic circle that can seal demons and immobilize people. Only a few members of the Parliament should be able to master it. Alvin took a deep breath and answered in a deep voice. At this time, the many sealed war bishops also reacted. Senator Erwin, is this magic circle something from the Arcane Council? Could it be that you have set up a magic circle to attack the church? The cooperation turned out to be a cover? Are you, the Arcane Council, planning to declare war on our Church of War? The many war bishops who were immobilized started to make a commotion, and even Dival on the side looked at Erwin meaningfully among the crowd. Only Lear and Miriah had expressionless faces. In Lear's perception, a red dot was slowly approaching from a distance. It was the blood mark he had hung on the mage Mina. She is Maya's sister who was hiding in Soros, another extraordinary wizard. He had sensed Mina's arrangement in the Pope's chamber a long time ago. The immortal witch had indeed come to his door, and after being threatened by Lear, she chose to retaliate. This is in line with the character of this witch beside her. Milia glanced at Lear. She also did not have much emotion about the two magic circles. It would be better to say that the two magic circles had no effect on her at all. Of the class characteristics of the dominant level, the immortal witch Mina is only a leader class. Milia is 2 levels higher than Mina, so the magic circle set by Mina has no effect on Milia at all. Of the people who were already arguing did not notice anything strange about Lear and Milia. Not far away, a figure in a wizard's robe slowly walked over. She was wearing a black wizard robe and had beautiful purple curly hair, the same as Maya. The two looked somewhat similar, but Maya's temperament was wilder. Long time no see, my dear sister. Walking to the people who were frozen, Mina looked at Maya in front of her and greeted her with a smile. Sister? Maya was stunned. Princess Mina? Erwin on the side also showed a surprised expression. Oh, is this Master Erwin? I managed to escape from your encirclement with great difficulty. You were so cruel back then. Mina shifted her gaze to Erwin, and her eyes gradually became dangerous. After she got the forbidden arcane book, her mother ordered a wanted warrant. It was Elvin who arrested her. Mina was only a high-level wizard at the time. She paid a great price to escape. Enemies are extremely jealous when they meet. Mina gritted her teeth, took out her staff and walked directly in front of Erwin, hitting him hard on the forehead. Blood flowed from Erwin's forehead. As a mage, his body was not his strong point. Now that his magic power was sealed, although the blow was not serious, the pain in his body was real. Erwin's expression became distorted, but he was unable to move as he was under the immobilization spell. He could only let the blood flow down from his forehead until it dyed the lining of his dress red. Don't hit my father. Seeing this, Tivani screamed after a brief daze. Oh, you are Erwin's daughter? Mina turned her head and looked at the angry Tivani with interest. The girl was very beautiful. She walked to Divine, stretched out her hand and pinched Divine's chin. It would be nice if such a beautiful face had a few cuts, right? She whispered, like a terrifying devil. Enough. Maya on the side finally couldn't bear it anymore. She couldn't let her sister continue to act like this. Because of Maya's words, Mina paused while squeezing Tivani's hand. Sister, what do you want to do? Maya asked. Can't I come and see my dear sister? Mina chuckled. Is it necessary to set up such a large magic circle just to see me? Maya said angrily. I'm just a weak, pitiful, and helpless little wizard. What if you want to catch me when I see you? Mina shook her head and said casually. Sister, if this is just a farce, that should be enough. This is the War Church. Do you want to start a war between the Parliament and the War Church? Maya couldn't help but shouted. Provoke a war? Hearing Maya's words, Mina not only did not reflect, but a hint of excitement flashed in her eyes. If a war is provoked, that woman should be very distressed, right, elder sister? Don't worry, my dear sister. I know what I am doing and I will never do anything to start a war. Although I hate that woman, I hate war even more. The expression on Mina's face restrained, and she looked at Lear, who was not far away. I came here today for only one purpose, just to settle a personal grudge. As she spoke, she slowly walked towards Lear, who was not far away. We meet again, Special Executive Officer Lear. Mina looked at the handsome young man in front of her, and her tone became obviously unfriendly. Maya and the others were a little surprised. They looked at Lear and then at Mina. They found out that the other party was looking for Lear. It's been a while since we last met. It seems that Princess Mina has made her choice. Lear said lightly, with no change in his expression. Seeing Lear's indifferent look, Maya gritted her teeth. She clearly remembered how Lear threatened her at that time, as if he had her in his hands. It seems that Special Executive Officer Lear doesn't know what the current situation is. Mina was furious. She took the staff that she had just used to hit Erwin and hit Lear hard on the head. Boom, there was a muffled sound, and Lear stood there, still looking at him quietly. The staff hit Lear's head, but didn't even break the skin. Lear's current physical fitness has exceeded 99, but it is limited due to attribute restrictions. An attack like Mina's is simply impossible to break through his defense. In the eyes of players, it would be a forced deduction of some blood points. Princess Mina, are you tickling me? Lear said with a chuckle. Seeing this scene, the expressions of the other people around became a little strange. The physical strength of the War Knight was already strong, and an attack like the one just now could not possibly cause any harm to a War Knight of the extraordinary level. Any normal person should know this, but Mina still hit him, like a little girl making a fuss to vent her anger. For a moment, Mina's cheeks turned red. She didn't know whether to hit or not to hit with her staff. She had set up such a large magic circle today just to humiliate Lear severely in public, to make Lear look ugly in front of everyone, so as to get back at Lear for threatening her. But looking at Lear's indifferent look, it seemed as if she had turned into a clown. Do you really think I dare not touch you? Mina said viciously. You have 7 minutes left. Lear smiled and reported the remaining time of the immobilization magic circle. Seeing Lear's still unscrupulous look, Mina finally became completely angry and raised her staff. I just wanted to make you suffer a little. Who allowed you to threaten me like that before? But now it seems that I should give a more severe punishment to a hateful man like you. As Mina spoke, arcane light gathered on the staff. She was really angry. As long as she didn't kill Lear, she was going to make Lear pay the price. Anyway, she was just a wanted criminal of the Arcane Council, and even if Lear was seriously injured, she would not really provoke a war between the Arcane Council and the Church of War. You asked for this. Mina gritted her teeth. The spell on the staff in her hand was ready. Just when she was about to teach Lear a lesson, she discovered that blue starlight was flickering on Lear's body, and finally formed a gorgeous morning star armor. At the same time, Lear's body moved. The skill that Milia gave to Lear, Moon Robe Star Armor, makes him immune to all curses and control effects when in the star armor state. Although the magic power was sealed, it was only his own magic power, and Lear could still mobilize the magic power in his old dreams. He reached out and grabbed the staff in Mina's hand, then launched an arcane counterattack. In an instant, the spell condensed on the staff disappeared. You asked for this. Lear slowly repeated what Mina had said before. Finally, in front of everyone, he grabbed the staff, held Mina in his arms, and tied her up tightly. Lear leaned down to whisper in Mina's ear. Princess Mina, the situation has reversed. I originally just wanted your magic, but now it seems that you are going to lose yourself. End of this chapter, chapter 198, Prisoner Mina and Return to the Bloody City. You let me go. Mina reacted, her face pale with fright. She tried to use spells, but no matter whether they were elementary, intermediate, or advanced spells, they all dissipated at the stage of gathering magic power. She gritted her teeth and was about to fight, but Lear looked up at Milia. Seeing Lear's gaze, Milia understood what Lear meant in a blink of an eye. Although she was a little reluctant, she still raised the morning star staff, and then a ray of starlight fell on Mina. Mina, who was about to use her magic power to escape, suddenly discovered that her perception of arcane laws had completely disappeared. It was like becoming an ordinary person, as if the arcane laws had never existed. In an instant, an unprecedented feeling of fear surged into Mina's heart, and her whole body went limp. What did you do to me? Mina shouted in panic. It just temporarily seals your power. Lear still leaned close to Mina's ear and spoke in a flat tone. How is this possible? How can there be such power? Mina couldn't accept it at all. Even the arcane magic that seemed omnipotent to her could only seal magic power. But now she had even lost her perception of the laws of arcane. Is it possible that you haven't already felt it? Lear replied with a chuckle. Milia's Morningstar sealing technique can completely seal all the power of the target, including any legal ability. With so many people watching, it was impossible for him to suck blood and devour Mina's magic, so he could only let Milia take action. Anyway, Milia had officially made her debut now. Milia's Morningstar laws are not just what you just saw. As long as she wants, she can directly seal all of Sylvia's legal powers and turn you into an ordinary person like you are now. Lear stretched out his hand and grabbed Mina. Now Mina is a weak woman who is powerless, lifting Mina in his hand like a chicken. Lear continued. Also, I saw you sneaking into the Pope's Hall and setting up the magic circle at night these past few days. I didn't stop you.
I just wanted to see what you wanted to do. I didn't expect you to come to me on your own initiative."
Listening to Lear's words, Mina, who was held in Lear's hand, blushed. She had never expected that Lear had already known about her arrangement. You bastard."
Mina cursed angrily.
According to Lear, she was really like a little white rabbit that bumped into the pillar on its own initiative. Lear ignored Mina's abuse and asked, "Have you finished analyzing your arcane book?"
Hearing this, Mina was stunned for a moment. After a few seconds, she said viciously, "Even if the analysis is completed, so what?
I will never give the spell to you.
You'd better think it over before you answer.
I'm the special executive of the Church of War, and you're just a wanted criminal of the Arcane Council. No matter what I do to you, no one can stop me, not even your mother or the Speaker of the Arcane Council." Lier still spoke calmly, but there was a hint of severity in his tone. He really did not take the Arcane Council seriously. Before, he had some concerns because he did not know Milia's strength, but now he had no concerns at all. Milia's character information has been posted in the game forum.
She is a level 100 dominant NPC.
Isn't this invincible? He has worked so hard for so long, it's time for him to have some free time. Moreover, he also has arcane counterattack, so he doesn't have to worry at all when facing the Arcane Council. Lear's eyes inadvertently fell on Milia. He didn't notice at all that this little girl had become so strong without realizing it. Subconsciously, Lear still thought of Milia as the little princess she once was, but now Milia is the goddess of the morning star in her heart, which is completely different. Feeling Lear's gaze, Milia raised her head, snorted softly, and turned her head away. Lear smiled awkwardly, but Mina's expression was angry with a hint of panic. She heard the seriousness in Lear's tone. She didn't know what Lear would do to her, but it would definitely not be a good thing. Lear, just as Mina was struggling, Dival, who was not far away, said awkwardly, "Well, Special Executive Officer Lear, although I don't know what grudge there is between you and this lady, can you remove the magic circle first?" Lear then turned to look at the other people present, then smiled, handed Mina to Milia, stood up and disappeared into the night. A few minutes later, the magic circle on the ground shattered, and the magic power that bound everyone disappeared. Lear also returned to the banquet hall not far away. As long as we destroy the few magic circle nodes set up by Mina, we can easily break the magic circle. Everyone who was freed breathed a sigh of relief, and as soon as the seal was broken, Maya ran to Milia's side, and Lear also walked back from not far away. Special Executive Lear. Maya glanced at her sister who was held by Milia, and looked as if she wanted to say something but hesitated.